Yes, everyone, good evening. Fan show time. It is going to be just me tonight. Dave was supposed to be here, but unfortunately he has an extra meeting to take care of. So it is going to be me. So hopefully you guys can still come on, have your say. There should still be plenty of debuts. I'd like to see them happen because Davey Shire was very, very generous to all of you, especially us, with providing so many new fan show memberships. So I'd love to see someone come on at some point to provide their debut. Of course, though, we do play tomorrow. We're going to be playing the Korean All-Star 11. If you have any thoughts on that, welcome to come on because we are about to play. I had to do the math in my head. Our fourth preseason game already this season. And so far, so good, I'd say, despite the lack of signings, which we'll touch on in just a second here. I think there has been a lot of positives to take from this preseason. A lot of the younger players have played really well. We've seen some really great moments from some of the newer signings like Archie Gray, Bergvall, etc. It's been, I think, a pretty fun preseason. And you look at some of the other clubs like Man United, Chelsea, and whatnot that I'm hearing about some of the big kind of maybe ugly performances in their respective preseasons. I'm not sure if it's really too much to read into, but I had felt like Spurs have, maybe had a better preseason than usual. So that's going to be one of my questions for tonight for you guys. How have you felt like, or have you felt about the preseason so far? We have some other questions I'll get to in just a moment. Hopefully, people are joining us. If you can, smash the like button. And if you do want to come on and have your say, the link should be in the community section for all of you. And I think as well about maybe around an hour or so into the show, I am going to take the link down because we do have to get up nice and early tomorrow for the watch along, for the pre-match build-up, all that good stuff. And so if you can for me, save the link. It does me a massive favor. But at any point, if you do end up losing the link or something like that, if you have my number, you can text me and I'll try to send it over while I'm running the show. Or you can also email Dave's email in the description, and then I can take care of that. Just let me know if you have done so. But good to see some people in the house. Anthony Lynch, very frustrated with the Levy lack of signings. We'll touch on that tonight. I do have a question for it, so I will give you my thoughts on it in just a second, Anthony. But we do have Edward Joker Davis, who's lined up second. Hopefully he has some good things to say about the transfer window, preseason, etc. He's saying, come on, you Spurs to win the league. Well, at least Edward's feeling positive about things. Jason Scope says, I've had enough of this shambles. I mean, we're reaching that point of the summer where people are either retaining any sort of hope or any sort of hopium, as sometimes I like to call it when it comes to the transfers, or they've lost all hope and hopium, and at this point they're starting to get a little frustrated. Dave and I put out a video I think a couple of weeks ago, or maybe less than a week ago. It feels like we put out so many in the last week or so, but we were kind of talking about basically Spurs fans and why I kind of don't really blame them for being frustrated, worried, or whatever word you want to use for kind of just the anxiety surrounding the fan base with the lack of signings thus far. And I don't blame people for starting to get very frustrated. I also don't blame people for holding on to their patience, holding on to whatever hope they have of those signings to eventually come through the door. Listen, Heinz saying, I heard we're in advanced talks for Skip. That's the funniest thing I've heard all day. I'd imagine that Spurs are looking to try to get rid of Skip, unless I'm mistaken. And I did put him out as a potential candidate that Spurs could actually hopefully make some money on. You'd think that they'd be able to make some coin out of Skip because we're looking at some of the signings that other clubs have taken from each other from their respective academies or just homegrown talent that's gone for a lot of money. And I think Skip, to somebody is probably worth, I don't know, 15, 20 million, you'd say. Like, if I could be undervaluing him, I could be overvaluing him. Let me know if anybody feels strongly about selling Skip this summer, and if Spurs would be willing to do so. My hunch is that they're going to try to use him again as probably a homegrown type of pawn of some kind to hold on to him for at least one more season because they do have to meet those criteria and quotas when it comes to Champions League, Premier League, those type of things. So, listen, Heinz, I do wonder if actually Skip's future is really in doubt. It could be in doubt the next summer, but I'm not too sure about this one. Jason Bell saying, big up, Jack, and everyone in the chat. Really appreciate your support. Jason Bell for us, for a long time now, but also as well as being a member and a fellow Yank of the Spurs. Big up to you, Jason Bell. Martin Walton, good to see you in the house. At one point, Martin, would love to see you make your debut. I know you've had the membership once or twice, so I would love to have a chat with you. Finally meet you, my friend. We have Ribsy85 in here. We're going to be talking to him later. Big up to the Ribsy, the GOAT of the fan shows. We have Darius as well. Good to see you, Darius. Love your name, by the way. Big up, Jack. Come on, you Spurs. Appreciate you. And Dermatron saying, I don't agree with this. We are getting players in the transfer window. We are not EAFC in real life or football manager. Well, Dermatron, I can see how you feel about this. Seems like you're holding on to some hope. You have patience about this whole thing. So looking forward to seeing what you have to say. Kieran Spiteri saying, "Hey Dave, big up my man and big up Jack." Also, honestly, I just have to say, this is our sporting director needs to go. Completely miss Paratici, completely best sporting director we ever had. I mean, the Paratici era, I'm not sure if it's actually over. I think Paratici is still around the club. It still has his hands and things. I don't think he has the same control or the same power that maybe he once did. But I feel like the fact that we see him at Spurs games, he's been around, kind of the campus of, I think, the training academy, where Daniel Levy would be in his office. At least I've seen pictures and I've heard rumors that Paratici isn't really actually technically gone from the football club, which at least to me gives me some positive hope. And you still look at a lot of the recent signings, both from last summer up until this point. We haven't made a ton of signings, but I think most of them have looked very, very good and very strong. Of course, mostly in the very young bracket for the future type of bracket of signings. But I think Spurs, if you really compare it to the dark, dark days of Steve Hitchen, I still think we're headed in a much better direction than we were under that guy. But maybe I'm just kind of covering up for them. Georgie Hill saying, "Big up, Jack. Hope you're keeping well and enjoying the Pacific Northwest again." That I am, Georgie. And he says, "Think we'll end up with Eze has deadline transfer day written all over it." That's kind of what I was starting to think, George. Hoping for more, though. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Harris Army. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. I'm leaning towards it's going to be, in terms of the wingers, I'm not even sure now at this point if we're even going to be signing a striker. Would love to know if anyone else is starting to kind of get that fear, whether it's going to be a winger or a striker. Maybe some people don't think it's going to be any, but I think it's going to be a winger or a striker, some big name that Spurs are leaning on. And in the winger department, might be Eze, but I'm starting to now think it's going to be randomly like a Pedro Neto, someone who I think is supposed to be leaving this summer because of maybe the injury worries and things like that. Maybe there's some type of deal to be made. I feel like Wolves is a club that I'm not sure if we've really done much business with, but I doubt we've, broken any bridges or anything like that, or burned any bridges like we have with some other clubs where we have a really bad relationship with the fellow owner, the fellow sporting director. So I am curious if it's going to be Pedro Neto. Whereas with Eze, it feels complicated, not really on the player side or on the personal side of things. It just feels complicated with the fact that Spurs just aren't really the club to just go out and pay the release clause. It's probably one of the easiest ways you can get a player through the door. You don't even really have to engage too much with the club. But Spurs love the negotiations. They love the haggling, the business side of things. Even just recently, I was listening to Talk Sport on, I forget which owner. I think it's the Peterborough manager or not manager, owner, director, whatever he is. I like his accent. He's an Irish guy by the looks of things, and he has some really good things to say about sort of, the business dealings of the transfer window. Kind of talks about how it can't really be done as easily as we think, but he also brought up some things about Daniel Levy just recently that I thought were kind of fascinating. And I think it was also the Watford former sporting director that they had on recently on Talk Sport. And it was a really interesting conversation, kind of hearing about sort of how Daniel Levy is kind of seen amongst, the rest of them. They do find him to be, I think, a fascinating sort of business deal person, but they did emphasize like he does really like to have his hands in things when it comes to mostly the incomings. I didn't think they said that he had much to do with the outgoings, but it's more to do with the incomings. He really tries to find various ways to make you a deal. He's not the guy just to pay you up front exactly what you want. He'll try to get it done in, 5-10 different ways, and he'll offer you 5-10 different options, and just lives for it. He lives for the crack of it, I guess, Georgia Hill. But I'm leaning on Pedro Neto or Eze. And then if it isn't going to be those two, it's going to end up being a striker for some reason. I think it might be like a Dominic Solanke, someone who we haven't, again, been that linked with. It just feels like even this summer is different to previous ones, where in previous summers, we were getting a lot of links to various players, and then one of them would eventually come through the door. Whereas this summer, I think a lot of the ITKs have gotten a lot of it wrong, or just have just been well off the mark of what has actually happened. It feels like a lot of the transfers that have been done, but sort of been done in like this 48-hour period where we had like no idea to begin with that it was going to be happening. So I wonder if kind of this summer, maybe the ITKs are a bit drier on their inside men or on their inside sources. King Hoddle, Spurs are too close to the Scousers for my liking. Um, I'm kind of curious how actually Arne Slot and the likes of Liverpool are doing this summer. To be honest, King Hoddle, I haven't seen too much, kind of noise or anything like them, and I heard they haven't even really been making many signings themselves. So wonder what their fan base sort of feels like with the lack of signings and also a new project they're trying to build. Good to see you, Gavin Mills. Hopefully you're keeping well. Good to see you, Patrick Slater, too. So much angst about lack of signings. People need to calm down. Well, Patrick, if you want to come on, become a fan show member, and have your say about it, feel free to do so. Thank you for joining us, though, in the house. We also have Stefan Blois. Good to see you, Stefan Blois. Really appreciate your support for this channel over these years. And he's saying, have to remember the window is open for many more weeks. At least that's what I'm clinging on to. That's sort of what I'm clinging on to as well, Stefan. I'm starting to get a bit frustrated. I'm not sure if I'm really worried or kind of losing hope, but I'm getting a little bit frustrated at this point. I think it does need to happen a lot sooner rather than later. Fat Tony, big up to you. Hopefully you're keeping well as well in the Pacific Northwest. Um, Levy will want an unrealistic 25 million per skip guaranteed. I mean, yeah, I think we know that that's how it works. But I did hear just recently, probably plenty of people think I'm ridiculous to believe this, but I think Paul O'Keefe has said something or another about Levy doesn't take as much of a role or as much responsibility in the Spursers. Oh, so good evening, Spursers. Oh, I see. I see. Thank you, Brad. Sorry, reading this as as I'm talking. But Martin, what I heard about Levy recently is that from Paul O'Keefe as well as on whatever that Watford sporting director was on Talk Sport, I did hear that he doesn't take as much of an active role in the outgoings as much as he does in the incomings. You know, you're welcome to believe it or not, but I did find that kind of interesting to hear from someone that isn't, totally connected to Spurs, but might have more of that outside perspective on things. Thank you, Marcus. Good to see you in the house, and also appreciate you joining us. We have artist Dropkick Your Teacher in here as well, saying we genuinely won't have see any improvement if we rely on our youth talent instead of two new players in. I think the youth talent being brought in is only good for us, to be honest, Dropkick Your Teacher. But have we actually realistically improved significantly on the first team, 11? Maybe in certain areas, like when it comes to bringing through new guys like Bergvall, like Archie Gray, but they're not even guaranteed starters, I'd say, in this first team 11. We do need guys that can directly impact the starting squad, and I'm not sure if we've made those signings straight away. And some of the other ones that I'll just touch on when I'm going through the questions is like even a backup left back just to support Destiny Udogie. The fact that that hasn't even happened or we haven't seen any links to it at all. Again, I just said that maybe the links are not going to be that available to us. It seems like Spurs have closed up shop on a lot of the leaked rumors and that type of thing. But I am kind of concerned by the fact that we're still seeing like Jamie Donnelly used as a inverted fullback when that's really not his ideal position. And then Sieg Ben Davies rolled out there, who I just for the last 3 or 4 years have not even recognized as a, as a left back. I just refuse to do so. I think he is far better suited as a left-sided center back, and I don't even think he should still be with this squad. But that's a whole different issue entirely. But I think I am starting to get frustrated at this point, artist or Dropkick Your Teacher. Am I losing hope? Not necessarily. Big up to Colin Turner. Good to see you in the house as well. I'm sure new players will come in Levy fashion, doing business very late so they can get them on the cheap. What's funny about that is recently we started complimenting Levy and Spurs for doing some of their business early. They did it last summer relatively early. This January window, I think they got some of the business done sooner rather than later. And then now they're kind of back to their old ways of waiting till the very end by the looks of things. Konami's in here. Are there any wingers besides Neto that Spurs have concrete interest in? Chiesa has been the one that's been touted recently, but there hasn't actually been any real concrete negotiations or anything like that that's kind of really been discussed or really been proven. I think there was some hot news that had come out, and then since then it's died down a little bit by what I can tell. Good to see you, Davey Clark. He's saying it's not the asking price that's holding this transfer up. It's that Palace want a huge chunk of that money up front. Yeah, that's probably right, David Clark. And that's just not really our style now, isn't it? I think we're much more of a club that likes to pay things in installments, pay things over time, over the years. And believe me, even recently, I've been enjoying that. I think with my own kind of Chase bank account, occasionally they give you this offer, to split like $100 payment, over like 6 7 different payments. And I believe me, it is tempting at times. I think Daniel Levy is probably trying to do more or less the same things with the transfer. Jacob Anderson, member for 30 months. Let me check in on that as well, what even membership you have at this point, because you've been very, very nice to us, Jacob Anderson. And he's saying, I'm hoping for Eze, but I'm starting to think it won't even happen. I think Tony will come in. I really hope the new kids make a difference this year. I mean, I'm about to get on to that once I get through the rest of the, talking to you guys and the rest of the chat here. But Jacob, I do have sort of this fear about, is it going to be a striker or is it going to be a winger, right? And it's hard to really get a gauge of it. I think originally in the summer in the very early stages, we were saying kind of both. We wanted someone to kind of help challenge Richarlison, if not replace Richarlison. And then we also wanted another winger to compete with the likes of Brennan Johnson, compete with the likes of Timo Werner, etc. And just haven't seen much of anything in that department yet happening. I think we will get one of them, just not sure which one and which one is actually better, right, for the current squad and for the current team. But appreciate you, Jacob Anderson, and it looks like you've been an elite member as well for 30 months. So thank you so much. And please get in touch if you've ever wanted to do that Spurs story. I know Dave and I have dropped the ball on that a couple of times, but we are trying to deliver far, far more for you guys. So please, if you ever want to get in touch, we would love to know more about your Spurs background and what brought you to this crazy club and all this crazy stress that we end up going through in the summer months. But thank you so much for being with us for such a long time. And you absolute goat. Mark New is in here too. Adam Phillips saying buffering just for me. Let me know if anybody cannot hear me okay. Of course, I, said in a recent video, I am trying to get a new microphone. So let me know about, that if you see any technical difficulties or see any issues that do arise during the stream, do let me know. Um, should have taken a gamble on Sancho. Not too sure about that one, Adam Phillip. I think Sancho is going to have to prove a little bit more before I think we start investing big money and bailing Man United out. Nitro DJ saying good evening. Hope everyone is well. Good to see you, Nitro DJ. Foggy Foam is in here as well. Really appreciate your support for the channel, Foggy Foam. And I think for the most part, I got through the best of the chat, most of the chat as best as I could. I'm going to start going through some of the questions here that I have prepared for everybody that is about to come on. If you can for me, though, everyone, smash the like button. Keep getting your comments in. If you want to at any point stop the show and ask a guest a question, you can put it in the chat. I'll try to bring it up. I do have plenty of my own questions to be asking them. And if you really wanted to interrupt it, you're certainly welcome. Support the channel, grab a membership, come on, have your say, or you can throw it in as a super chat if you did want to really get your questions answered for the guests. But we have just about 4 or 5 lined up here. We're going to be talking about Brian Hill and Emerson Royale potentially leaving this week. Emerson Royale is expected to leave this week, according to a lot of the Italian outlets. And Brian Hill went on loan to Girona, but there was no buy option or anything mentioned in it. And it looked like Spurs might have even extended his contract or something like that or another. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Is that Spurs just getting these guys out the door, trying to be ruthless like we've tried to compliment them in the past? Or is it just them trying to get the deadwood out in any way they can? Let me know in kind of the Emerson Royale, Brian Hill situation with getting them out. We still have to get out Lo Celso. We still have to get out Reguilón. But what are your thoughts on kind of the deadwood and, how well you think Spurs, or maybe not well that Spurs have dealt with the outgoings this summer? Youngman Hook, we just signed him. Are you a fan of the signing? Are you frustrated by the signing? Plenty of people have labeled it as a commercial signing. I find that to be a bit unfair because we haven't said that about some of the other signings that have been young and for the future. And the guy just happens to be, I think, South Korean. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is just only a commercial signing. He looks to be a really talented player. I really like actually a lot of the looks of his kind of technical ability. Looks like an Ange Postecoglou style winger where he looks very comfortable in the wide areas, looks comfortable with taking on his man. So for the most part, for 4 million euros for what's supposed to be basically the next up and coming winger from the K League and in the South Korean system, this kind of feels like a no brainer for Spurs and for a lot of reasons. Yes, there might be some commercial side to it, but I think it's actually more just to add on to the already really brilliant list of young, talented players that we're trying to build up here. We have Bergvall, Vuskovic we signed, which I think this signing is really similar to, kind of like that Vuskovic signing. You also look at Archie Gray. You also look at Udoji, Pop Matasar, so many people that we've been signing over the past few years or so since Parategy has come in. And so I do feel like this just falls in line with a lot of those and isn't really all too different from it. It just happens to be even cheaper than some of the rest of them, which is crazy to think about. And the big question for tonight that I think has definitely sparked already some debate or sparked some emotions in the chat, which I don't blame you, is will Spurs sign another forward? Will we address any of the priorities that we had before the transfer window opened up? And the one that I have listed out for you guys is, we were probably all interested or all wanting a new striker. We all wanted new wingers as well. Some people kind of combine the two as sort of forwards in general. I wouldn't blame you. So I think a lot of people originally, when the summer started, we were all thinking about probably at least 2 forwards to be signed kind of for the first team, basically for, to impact the starting 11. I just mentioned earlier, one of my big priorities was actually signing some type of left back cover for Destiny Udoji. I feel like that needs to be happening. And I haven't been seeing too much rumors about that. Not saying I've lost hope or anything, but certainly needs to be happening soon. Then we also see that Basuma competition, I think, was one of the original things that people wanted. They wanted a new number 6 to either replace Basuma or at least compete with Basuma in that deeper role. And I think for the most part, Archie Gray is supposed to be that type of signing for the future, as well as kind of for the here and now to compete with Basuma. But if people disagree with that, they're welcome to. Another question is if you could bring in, and this is a fun one, I think, if you could bring in any Spurs player from the past in their prime to this Ange Postecoglou team, who would it be? So anybody from the days of Glenn Hoddle to Ozzy to Berbatov to Harry Kane, if you even want to bring him back, let me know of any player in their prime that has played for Spurs significantly that you would bring back to the Ange Postecoglou team. Something that I think I want to be asking Dave for, like a future video or maybe a video for the members, something like that, because I think that's a fun question. And then the other one that I have is, can Mikey Moore and the Spurs youngsters get more minutes than you even thought they would this season? Do they actually look, and this has been said a lot by you guys in the chat, do they actually look more comfortable playing Ange's system than even the first team players do? I've seen that opinion from a few of you guys about some of the youngsters. They've been so good that they actually look even better than some of the first team players that we already have that should be more familiar with Ange Postecoglou's system. Yet it feels like the younger players have looked more familiar. And then last and certainly not least, any expectations for tomorrow's game. I'm going to stop. I'm going to start shutting up. I'm going to let some of the people come on and have their say here. If you can, for me again, smash the like button, but let's get this show started on the road. We will go to first Brad Matthews, the one and only. How you doing, Brad?
Hello, Jack. I'm doing fine. It's rather warm in London at the moment, so all the windows are open, the fans are on, anything to get to stay cool, because we don't believe in air conditioning in this country. So,
well, we were joking that you were probably saving even more money on the energy bill from the fans running and things like that. You haven't had to use them as much this summer.
No.
But Brad, I mean, start with a fun one. That one that I want people to answer. I hope everyone, has an opinion on this. If you were to bring one Spurs player back in from their prime that has played for us significantly, who would it be to the Ange Postecoglou system? Because we're going to be talking about transfers, so maybe we start on a positive note. Who would be a magical mystery player that you would bring back from their prime?
Well, there are many great players within at Tottenham, but I think in this current Postecoglou team, we need someone that's got a little bit of magic, can do the unexpected, and also can take players on. And I think that was Paul Gascoigne. I think he had that little bit of magic dust. He got us to the 91 Cup final virtually single-handed, with some absolutely magic moments, including the famous free kick. I just think we just need a little bit. We've got some decent players at Tottenham, but we just need a little bit of magic dust. Just someone who can turn a game, and that sort of, when we can't break down a team, Gascoigne was the sort of player that could do that. And as I say, he used to take players on in the middle of the field. I mean, it's all very well saying the wingers take players on, but he used to do it in the middle of the field. And what that does is you take a player, go past that player, that takes him out of the game. So Gascoigne did that very, very well. And he had the great free kicks. He scored loads of goals. So yeah, that'll be my player.
He probably would press like a lunatic as well, you'd think, too, in this system to win it back. Everything that we're probably wishing Madison could be doing, maybe on a more consistent basis.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing plenty of suggestions. Kyle Walker to Mousa Dembele to looks like even the likes of Adebayor, just for the banter, says Nick. I like Defoe, actually, who's an outside shout. He could come across as similar to what Furuhashi was, maybe for that Celtic team.
I mean,
another Defoe.
Another player, to be fair, would be someone like Dave Mackay. Anyone that's not old, that isn't old enough to remember Dave Mackay. I guess you could describe him as the Roy Keane of his day. So you can imagine a Roy Keane type player in his pomp playing at Tottenham. That's that sort of player that Dave Mackay was, and a winner as well, an absolute winner. So yeah, and this one, Jimmy Greaves. I mean, he's my favourite Spurs player of all time. But I think at the moment we just need that little bit of a spark in the midfield.
I even thought to myself, actually, even of course I'd never even got to watch Jimmy Greaves, but I was thinking, I wonder if even Jimmy Greaves is, for this system in particular, kind of an even more obvious choice than Harry Kane would be, just because of maybe the pace that he offered him behind, kind of the fact that he would be able to, you could see him making those runs to the back post.
Yeah, he was a goal poacher. Yeah, he was a goal poacher. He was very good at putting the ball away. He used to pass it into the net rather than hit it into the net. And he also had a real good turn of pace over that 5-10 yards. And as you say, the famous story about him was when it was a 0-0 against, it might have been Chelsea or someone, and Spurs had a free kick, and Jimmy Greaves was being marked. He looked up at the sky and said, "Oh, it looks like rain." And as that defender looked up, the ball came across, he moved and scored. That's the sort of thing he did. He is absolute master at that. But yeah, I'll stick with Paul Gascoigne for the time
I
being.
like it. You're more on mind is on the midfield. Well, that transitions us, I think, in some way. I'll try to transition it smoothly if I can to the transfer window, Brad. And you see my title here. I mean, Spurs fans, they're getting frustrated, they're getting anxious, they're losing patience. Where do you stand on this whole thing?
Okay, can I let me put something out there? Let me put this. This is not based on any information or anything I've heard. So the two players I'd like to see Tottenham get, and I think a lot of other fans will think the same. The two quality players, the two made-to-go players that we look at, Eze and Tony. Okay, let's just take those two players at the time being. Now, the first thing is that after the Euros, players get 3 weeks holiday normally. So that means that Eze and Tony have probably still on holidays. I think it's the third week. Because they were both there for the final. So 3 weeks after the final is what we're in now. So it'll be next week when they return. The other thing is that Tottenham are in Korea at the moment, and they play Bayern Munich on Saturday. And then the next friendly is Bayern Munich at home the following week. So I'm having a guess and saying that Tottenham will return to London at this time next week, I'd say. So this time next week, you've got two players that we might be interested in coming back from their holidays, and you've also got our team and our management. Let's face it, Daniel Levy's out there, so I'm presuming all the other staff are out there. So next week they all return back to the country, including the players that we might be interested in. So I'm just putting that out there as a possibility. Again, that's not said on any basis of anything I've heard or anything or any knowledge of how transfers work. The other thing is that I did hear, and this is from a journalist, was that with the release fee, if you say you're going to pay that, and we can argue whether we will, we won't. If you say you're going to pay that, then it's down to the player. It's nothing to do with the club anymore. So if you say here's 60 million, we're going to pay that release clause, then it's down to the player. So if Tottenham pay that release clause, Eze isn't in the country to say where he wants to play on that. I know there are phones and planes, all this sort of thing. But I'm just putting this stuff out there as possibilities that maybe, just maybe, next week might be the week. Again, it's probably me just putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5 and being hopeful. But it's just a possibility. Yeah. I'm certainly not getting as stressed as a lot of people seem to be getting at the moment. There's still, a month to go, a month and a week? Yeah, okay, the argument that we need players in early, of course that's a valid argument. But there is still a month. So
yeah,
we've got players out the door. We've got some youth players in that and else we just need that little bit of magic dust, as I said, those two quality players. Yeah, they probably need some other players, as you say, covering for left back, that sort of thing. And also the other thing, as far as Brian Hill's concerned, I believe there's no obligation to buy, because what they're doing is they're giving him a contract or an extension of his contract. So when the loan season ends, he's still worth money. We still get money for him. And I think the idea is there, because Girona, not one of your top clubs in Italy, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
then
Spain.
it basically comes out open that anyone can buy him at that stage. So I think that's the reason they've done that. But again, that's all what I've heard.
It's almost like we're trying to avoid maybe what happened with Højbjerg, where Højbjerg, reached the last year of his contract, and that's probably why he went for such a smaller fee. And they're probably going to try to see if they can recoup it in some way. And if he plays well, then they can hope in doing that.
But hi Simon, how you going, mate? Losing patience. Yeah, I can understand why people are getting a bit. As Simon said, losing patience. I understand that, but I'm just trying to remain calm. And at the moment, Postecoglou seems pretty happy with what's going on. So maybe there are things happening behind the scenes that there obviously are things happening behind the scenes that we don't know of. But yeah, I'm just hoping. I'm hoping maybe it is that forlorn hope that we all have. But yeah, I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in a similar boat to you, Brad, where I starting to get maybe a tad bit frustrated by it. Where I'd wish some of this could be done a bit sooner, but I also can understand why it's maybe more complicated this summer because of the respective international tournaments. And also, these guys do go out on vacation and go out on their breaks, and they actually, in a lot of cases, don't want to be hearing about whatever deals that are being made and that type of thing. They don't want to be spending the whole time while they should be with their families or whatever, or out on vacation with their buddies, talking about, is it going to be Dortmund or is it going to be Spurs? It's like their
exactly,
destination is just,
yeah.
it's not really part of it. But we are approaching the start of the season and no one wants to see, their big signings coming in too late so that they end up taking a few games to get embedded into the team. And so it's maybe like you say, I think I'm with you. It's understandable frustration.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily losing patience though, like yourself. I mean, when it comes to though the outgoings in general that we were just touching on, do you think Spurs have been doing a pretty good job in that department, or do you think?
Yeah, I think
I think so.
I think Brian Hill was the one I wanted to see go. Not because of anything against Brian Hill. I just thought it's unfair on the player. He obviously wasn't in Postecoglou's plans. He wasn't in Conte's plans, and just to keep him on here, So I'm just hoping that he does get a team coming for him at the end of his loan period. Reguilon again. Nothing against the player, but if they don't want him, just move him on. I was just wondering. I was just trying to think of Lo Celso. I'm presuming Lo Celso hasn't joined the squad because of the Copa America.
Likely, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's probably like in Reguilon's and Hill's camp, where they're probably just looking for him to find his own move.
So that's why I was a little bit surprised that they included him in the tour and didn't say, well, he's at home to. But then again, he's not going to be out with the tour until probably now. Actually, I presume with the Copa America being over. But I think the outgoings have gone well. I don't think there's any player that I can think of that we haven't got rid of. I mean, I know people are going to be saying, Davis. I know that, but he's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's just one of those players that every club has. They're just Mr. Dependable. Yeah, he makes errors, but he's just one of those sort of players. And I don't get as angry about him as some people do. But and I can't think. Oliver Skipp again. Oliver Skipp. I thought he was going to be a really, really good player, and he had that injury, and I'm not sure how much that's affected him because I remember under Nuno for that matter when he first started, he was a good player, and he had that really bad injury, and then he came back and then got injured again. I just wonder, but he seems to have. I'm a bit disappointed in him, but I guess with moving him on, it all depends on who they're going to, how many of the youngsters they're going to include in the squad. Because I was looking at the match the other day and seeing how many youngsters. Now, I'm not going to get carried away. Very talented young players we got there. I was amazed at their confidence, the confidence they had. So, there's no guarantee they're going to be, brilliant players in the Premiership. But we've got some talented players there that could be good. There's potential. And I'm just wondering whether the squad is so large that players like Skipp might have to be moved on.
Speaking of their confidence, though, Brad, I mean, it's been made, this opinion has been made before, but I think Sean has said this. I know some people in the chat have said this during watch-alongs or during these sort of fan shows about how the younger players are so confident they practically look more comfortable playing than the first team players with Ange's system. Do you share that kind of opinion?
Yeah, well, I guess young players are quite malleable. They're not set in their ways. And if you think of it, they've been playing the same Postecoglou system, I'm presuming, for the under-21s. The under-21s, the other thing we seem to forget about these young players, they're all winners. They're all winners. The under-21s won the title and won the playoff.
Yeah.
So they're winners. And I think that obviously leads to confidence. They confidence in their own ability. But when I watched the game against Kobe, I mean, I was amazed at the confidence that they had in doing these little turns and this sort of stuff. I think Mikey Moore did a little Cruyff turn at some stage, and it's like, wow, this guy's 16, So I think there's promise. They definitely promise, but I don't want to get excited. And I don't want to sort of say, this is going to win the title because it won't. I mean, the famous you can't win the title with kids from what's his face. When they actually did, that just happens once in the blue moon. So but it's handy to have a blend of youth, and we've got a lot of games coming up now. We're hopefully going to give the whatever they call it now. I call it the League Cup. We're hopefully going to give that more of a go this season, and also with the Europa League, I hope we're going to give that a go. So there's a lot of games coming up this season that they'll be able to get their game time. So yeah.
And last question, at least for me, Brad, unless you had one that maybe you feel like you're missing out on that maybe you want to chat about. I do have
No, well,
another
I've got
question.
something to say after your question. But what's your
Okay,
last?
sure. When it comes to Young Min Hook, how do you feel about that signing for tomorrow? And we're going to be
Well,
playing him tomorrow. How do you feel about the game tomorrow?
you've got to think. Well, they obviously like Bergwall, and no one's thinking to moan about Bergwall. So I think young Sulka is in the same sort of situation. He's a talented player, and yeah. I mean, I've never seen the guy, never heard of him until I heard that we were interested in him. Interested if he might play tomorrow. I don't know for the Korean team, but yeah, we obviously think he's good. So yeah, as I say, I can't say it's good or bad because I've never seen him play. But yeah,
I agree. It's in that Bergvall Vuskovic kind of bracket. These talented guys for the future, and we'll see if he can make an impact straight away. Like some
Ian Ferguson, there bring swagger. Yeah, that
mm-hmm.
I mean, not confidence, not arrogance, but what the other word is there. There's that swagger in your ability. Yeah. So yeah, so I'm not. As I say, I've never seen the guy play. They obviously think a lot of him. Yeah, you could be cynical and say it's Son, if you like.
Apparently, Sonny has only just met him now, and he's like already having to give him advice. I feel bad for Sonny, where they really do force the ambassadorship, kind of role into his job requirement.
Yeah.
It feels like he has to be the ambassador in so many cases.
I've got two things to say. First of all, thank you for putting my YouTube channel up, Lucy for Songs. Anyone doesn't know, I try and write my own songs, play all the instruments, record them, and do videos. I haven't done a thing for a while. I guess it's just one of those situations that you get in where you sort of lose the sort of, not the ability, but you just lose the mojo for a while. But I've recorded some guitar and bass and drums, and I just need to finish lyrics and do the finishing touches. So there will be a new song out hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But the station or the channel has got 50 odd songs on there, so it's not like there's something to watch. So yeah, if you want to see what a guy who's about to become have his Beatles birthday, and this Monday, my Beatles birthday, when I'm 64, if anyone doesn't know, by the way. So yeah, so if you want to see what I've come up with, songs about various things, bits and pieces, bit of politics in there, which you may or may not agree with, that's fair enough. But the other thing, speaking of, this puts me nicely into music. I went to the Uptown Festival on Sunday, which featured the Madness at the band. Now, Madness were around probably, people like my age have grown up with them. So you go to the game or you go to the gig, and there's loads of people my age, probably from the same background, same sort of stuff and that. And there are some football fans there, okay? And some people wear football tops, but I went with my Spurs sun hat, right? Because it was really, really hot. The sun was out for a change.
It's a nice one. I like it.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I bought this for the Champions League final. And now, if I'm at a gig and I see someone in Arsenal, I'm not going to go up to them and go, fuck off, Arsenal, sort of thing. But this woman, she said to me, she was standing in front of me, and someone actually, I must have dropped the hat, and someone picked it up and gave it to me, and she said to me, oh yeah, you can leave the hat on the grass because no one will step on it because they don't want to step on shit. And I sort of looked at her.
I hate it so much.
I sort of looked at her and I sort of went, oh yeah, like I've never heard that one before. And she actually got all defensive as well, and tried to laugh it off and that sort of thing. But then as I'm leaving the gig, so we're all sort of queuing up, so getting as fun as that. And there's a few guys in front, and they all start singing, "We hate Tottenham, we hate." Tottenham. Why? Why are you doing this?
Too easy for
them. I walked out. This guy must have heard it. This other guy about 20 or 30 yards must have heard it. Because he starts singing, you know me. So I just went over to him going, you know me. And we sort of, vector and shook hands and that sort of thing. So it was good to see that some of us still here, here sort of thing. So, yeah.
I love that guy that helped you out there, though. That's probably one of the best things about Spurs fans. Is I do think you really do have to take a lot of shit, but then that's what should make us closer. You would think, right? Instead of tearing each other apart at times. The fact that everybody else already hates us so much. So might as well cling on to each other.
We all walk down the street and see people wearing other teams' shirts. I wouldn't even cross my mind to go, oh yeah, rubbish or that sort of thing. It's I just don't get it. I don't get it. But anyway, it was a great gig.
That's a great story, Brad. Yeah, I'm glad you told me that.
It was a great gig, and they're backed up by the Lightning Seeds, who I also like, and the Zootons I haven't seen for a while. and a couple of DJs. It's a really family gig, load of little kids, people with their kids there, that sort of thing. But no, it's a really, really top day out. And despite getting told about my hat being like shit, it was good. It was good. But that's just one moment. So. But anyway,
I'm glad you shared that story, actually. And I hope people can realize that that's part of whoever that Spurs fan that was out there, top one for supporting Brad and, backing him up there. But Brad, thanks for kicking off the fan show as you usually do.
No problems, mate.
Form, excellent fashion. And thanks for leaving a little anecdote at the end. It actually really brightened my day, actually, to hear that story. It did make me chuckle. I wish you a good rest of your evening, sir.
You too. You two have a great evening, and best of luck with David in his whatever you mentioned
negotiations.
Before.
He's doing his own transfer negotiations.
Yeah, best of luck with that. But have a great week, Jack, and hopefully see you next week probably.
All right.
I think the game's on tomorrow, isn't it? The game's on at I think it's 11 o'clock our time. Well, I'm working from home tomorrow, so I'll have my work laptop and I'll have this laptop set up with the game on, so I'll be in the background.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just don't get caught looking at it too much.
No, my manager's a Brentford season ticket holder, so I think he'll understand. But
so hopefully they're nicer than those people at the concert. Pick up Brad. Have a good night, sir.
All right, cheers, mate. Bye-bye. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Celebrate everything, right?
Celebrate everything. Yeah, of course. I forgot that.
Well
Celebrate
done.
everything.
Well done. See ya. Big up to Brad. Please go over support Blue Sofa Songs as well. I'm going to put the link in one last time here. He's just a good guy. He knows how to, I think, get the show off started in the bright mood and just has really good things to say. An absolute pro of this fan show, but we're going to keep things moving. Really appreciate Simon Cohen, Rain Man. Thank you for joining us, both of you. Nitro DJ, loving the support as well. Thank you guys for coming on. And also, if you guys want to come on, have your say, hit that link. I'm going to have it up for about 15, 20 more minutes or so. And then I'm going to be taking it down. Do have to get up quite early for tomorrow's match day festivities. And also it just makes life a bit easier. And if you at any point lose the link, though, you can text me for it. I'll try to keep my eye on my phone here. But then also please email if you at any point maybe lose the link or something, because that can happen. And we do understand sometimes those technical difficulties. But we will keep this show on the road. And we're going on to Edward. What's up,
Hey,
Edward?
Jacko. How you going?
And how are you this evening, sir? Do you want to go straight into the transfer madness that I was just talking about, Brad, about losing patience? Or do you want to start on the positive note of maybe players in their prime? What would you like to do first?
We'll start quickly on the players in their prime because it's really easy for me. It's Gareth Bale. It's got to be Gareth Bale.
Comment. Why is it Gareth Bale?
Gareth Bale in the wing would tear every single team asunder for this sort of system. He would be such a great player. His pace, his long shots, like that man had a boot on him. And I just think he would do so well in this sort of ages system. And he will just bring so many goals and assists to this team.
Now, I think Gareth Bale, I had that when I've asked Dave this sort of question in the past, or just sort of like who I think the greatest ever Spurs player I've ever seen. As much as I loved Harry Kane, as much as I love Sonny, I think Gareth Bale could be up there with Luka Modric as probably the greatest player I've ever seen with my own two eyes in a Spurs shirt. And what I think makes Gareth Bale probably special is he kind of did at one point when he was at his like peak athletic performance. He kind of could just basically do it all. Like he could rise above for a header. He could take you down the wing, with his pace and his power. He could shoot it from 50 yards and make it, he could bang in free kicks, outside the foot crosses. Like what couldn't he do really actually at one point or another? Whereas Kane, he always lacked a bit of pace, maybe needed other people to make runs in behind for him. Like Gareth Bale could pick up the ball off the halfway line and just score a goal. And even it felt like that kind of was the case with Villas Boas. He would just kind of bail out, the team where we just needed someone just to score out of nothing, and he would end up doing that. And with the chances that these wingers get, I mean, God, like you say there, he'd just be scoring for fun in this team.
He would be scoring for fun.
Onto the transfer window, though, sir. What do you think? I mean, you losing patience, losing your sanity, or are you somehow retaining hope?
I'm retaining hope. Until when Ant loses his patience, I'll lose my patience. At the moment, I haven't lost my patience left, but I'll stay the same until then. In regards to who I can see us bring in, a lot of people are saying Tony. I still can't see Tony at all. not because of the price tag, but because of the player and the person. I don't. Ange doesn't like that sort of arrogant and think he's better than the club, or just is just not a nice person, as you could tell. And people say, "Oh, but we need like that sort of bad person in the team," but we do on the pitch, or off the pitch. It's where it matters the most when it comes to recruitment. If he isn't a good guy off the pitch, as we can see from his betting and his lack of, support for the Brentford fans, and still not apologizing for the whole gambling thing, he's just not a good person. And I can't see us bringing in Tony. I can't see us bringing in a striker. As to who to say, looking to be a big name.
Do you think it's going to be a striker or a winger?
I think he'll be a striker. Ange has said he wants a striker in lots of different interviews, and we're hinting at he wants a new number 9. I don't think it'll be a winger, because I feel like with the rise of Mikey Moore, he has probably given Ange the ability to go out and sign a striker and not have much to worry about. That's sort of the wingers. So I think it will be a striker. And I still think we'll try Eze, on the fact that I don't see Ange sees him as a winger. I think he sees him as a midfielder. That's how I see it. I see he'll probably see Eze as a 10 or 8 in his system. I don't think he'll see him as a right wing or a left wing in his system.
What do you think Ange likes about the wingers? Is that they hug that touch line? I think Drew Zilla said that once in the members group chat about how maybe he doesn't want that guy that cuts inside basically every time.
Yeah, he doesn't want the guy who will cut inside. He wants them to hug that touch line, get down that byline, and cross the ball in with pace and accuracy, which our wingers haven't always done in previous seasons. But what Mikey's doing, he's doing it. He's actually crossing, and he's also cutting in well. He's not losing the ball 100% of the time. So he's actually making best of both worlds, which is why I've said it in the chat. I can see Mikey halfway through the season overtaking Johnson as a starting 11. I can actually see that happening in the near future. Because I just feel Mikey adds so much different from what Johnson does. All Johnson does is rely on his pace, and half the time he doesn't really use it. But the first time I actually saw him use his pace was in the Visual Kobe game, for his assist to Sonny. When I actually saw him sprint for that ball, I was like, damn, he can actually sprint, because I haven't saw him any time last season doing that. And he just got that ball down and crossed it superbly first time to Son. It's plan A basically into perfection, and I can see that's not having Johnson but Mikey instead, because Mikey doesn't have the pace of Johnson, but has a better technical ability than Johnson. He has that dribbling. He has just an aura about him, which you wouldn't say about a 16-year-old. He has this sort of aura to go out and make a difference, which I think is what Ange is liking. And
what have you made of the fact that Ange has said he's basically in the 25-man squad for now? Like, is that a huge relief to you? And also, is that even above your expectations that he's already made that much of an impression?
Yeah, it's above my expectation. Ange has already gone out and said, yeah, he's the guy. He's my guy. I didn't expect that from Ange to say that about a 16-year-old. He doesn't often praise that young of a kid that often, unless they're really, really good. And Mikey has proven that. He's proven that he deserves that praise from Ange, and he's going to, I think, improve massively. He's going to sign his new contract it's on the Bayern Munich game, because he's turned 17, I think, on the 11th of August. It's when he turned 17, I think. So he will actually sign his professional contract on that day or the day after, whenever they can. And we'll see, I don't know how long, but for our judging for what they've been giving to a lot of youngsters, it's going to be a 5-year contract probably. which will see him until 22 years old. And even if he doesn't want to stay with us at 22, by the time he's 22 and he's keep improving, we could probably flip him for 100 mil if he stays to this sort of ladder and just keep getting better season after season. We could probably flip him for 100 million quite easy, I would say. Because there's so many clubs after him at the moment. That's my hope. That's me being a happy clapper. I'm a happy clapper.
Have to find a way. I love that, for a 16-year-old, 17-year-old's birthday present is to sign a 5-year contract, with the club. Yeah. Normally for me, it was probably still, I don't even know what 16 or 17, probably it was just a new Xbox video game or something at the time that I must have been super into. Not, wanting a 5-year contract. I can't even imagine what that kid is doing at that age. It's just ridiculous to think about. But kind of on to the question that I asked Brad earlier, Edward, I'm wondering if you share this opinion as well. Do you feel like the youngsters are actually looking even more comfortable with Ange's system and instructions than the first team?
Yeah, I've always knew that the youngsters would do this. I always had a feeling, because this is just how Ange is with youngsters. He can mold them into the player he wants them to be. For what the older senior players have to do, they have to unlearned all they have learned of the sort of defensive football Conte and Nuno taught them, or all their previous defensive managers, because you don't see this sort of attacking sort of manager that often in a lot of football clubs that they would have come from. Like Johnson, I think Cooper was a really defensive manager, if I'm remembering correctly. I can't remember Steve Cooper's information that much. But yeah, it just a lot of the players come from a sort of defensive background, and Ainge is teaching them that you can play attacking to express yourself. In Barwell, Gray, Mikey, Donnelly, they're showing that youngsters are the way to go. And I think fans should be excited for the season. I don't think fans should be like, I'm not going to do anything this season. We're going to finish fifth, sixth, not do much in the Cups or the Europa League. But I feel like fans should get excited. I feel like we will do much. Ange wants to win. He wants to win now. And I feel like he'll do that. I think this season is the season to go out and actually win something, especially if we go out and sign a number 9. If we sign a number 9, I think we're winning the Premier League. I'll say it. I think we're winning the Premier League if we sign number 9. And I feel like we'll probably put up a good showing in all the other cups. I feel like it will be a great season for Ange. I feel like this will show that his tactics are suicidal and that it is a proper way to play. And all the fans who doubted him and saying, this is a stupid way to play. He's naive. He not good for this sort of, he jumped too high, basically. I feel like they'll all be just on the wrong side of it. I feel like they need to give Ange time and to let him embed his ideas into these players. And I think that what he's done is quite honestly amazing. And I feel like, like Sonny said, quad is on.
Is that where some fans' anxiety and frustration is coming from, though, Edward, is that they feel like Ange can deliver trophies soon, but he's not being backed in the way that he needs to be in order to win those trophies as soon as he can?
Well, I see the striker that we're supposedly going to get. I feel like this is going to be a late signing, like we did with Mickey. Mickey didn't play for us until the first day of Premier League, and he actually blew it out of the park. Of course, we saw him got injured in the Chelsea game because he didn't have preseason or trained with the first team as much. But hopefully we can avoid that with our striker signing. And I can see us going and signing him once we get back to the back to England and back to play Bayern Munich at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But we won't see him until the Leicester game or the game after, depending on how long Ange wants to wait to introduce them into this sort of squad.
I feel like in the case of where the frustration is coming from fans, I think it is kind of dependent on what you're saying, is bringing in that big name striker, somebody that they just think can actually help him, can score goals on a consistent basis. Because it felt like last season, most of the time felt like the system and the tactics were relatively the same, and we were creating a lot of chances in a lot of games. It's just the inconsistency of that forward line just really ended up being kind of the big problem and the big issue for us not being able to win games on a consistent basis. And it's probably why the striker is such a big priority for you, I imagine, going into this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I hope that it happens.
it definitely is. And me and my dad's been tossing around names between each other who we think will be. He thinks it's either going to be Victor Gyökeres or Julio Alvarez. We haven't been linked with Alvarez, but Alvarez wants to play, and he wants to play consistently. We can offer that to him. Of course, it will cost a big signing fee from City. So with Victor Gyökeres, but I think like Alvarez will probably be on the cheaper side because they want 84 million for Gyökeres compared to Alvarez, who I think will be 70, 60 mil at best for Alvarez. But next season, I feel like we'll see this sort of Ange ball taken to the next level, especially if we go out and sign a proper number 9. That's all I want.
It needs to be a very consistent goal scoring number 9. It can't be someone who I think has had a flash in the pan type of season or something like that. It needs to be someone that a lot of the fan base can get behind. This is going to probably be the most delusional thing that someone will say tonight, but I did just see one of the ITK sort of transfer news sources say that Spurs have been lining up their interest, or in some jumble of those words that they always seem to use, the word trivia for the transfer rumors. But they did say that Victor Osimhen, since he is headed out of Napoli, that is someone that Spurs would be considering taking a look at. And you think about it with Victor Osimhen, like Real Madrid aren't going to be signing a striker. Barcelona aren't going to be signing a striker. Man United have already signed a striker. Chelsea have signed everybody under the moon at this point, so I don't even know if they can sign anybody else. I wonder where in particular Victor Osimhen would go. You could go, maybe they can't go to Bayern. You can't really go to Dortmund. You can't. There are only so many clubs left that actually would be able to afford a guy like him. So I found that kind of interesting, that sort of transfer rumor. But that will be the most delusional thing and hope said about tonight.
It's very delusional, but from what I'm hearing, it's PSG who wants him, and it's PSG.
That's right, PSG. Get him. Yeah, PSG. They forgot about that one.
They probably have the most money out of all the clubs interested in him to go out and sign him. Apparently, Napoli's looking to loan him out with an obligation to buy.
Wow.
Like that's what I've seen. Apparently, a loan is on the cards, but I just can't see that. We're a permanent transfer to who can say, but it won't be Spurs. No way. Levy's going out and dissing 90 million on Victor Osimhen. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I totally forgot about PSG. But when I saw that transfer rumor, I scoffed, and then I thought about it, and I was like, well, if I really were to go fully crazy, I think that there is something to that transfer rumor. But Edward, do you have any final things that maybe you want to say that I didn't get to let you talk about, or shall I ask you one final question?
Just quickly on the Emerson Royale thing. I feel like he'll probably leave once we get back. I can see, as much as fans will probably complain, I can see him playing in the next game. Probably not the Bayern Munich game, but the next game I can see him playing. Just because it's not 100% wrapped up from what I've heard, but it's looking like it will be. So I don't think fans should go on and go, oh, why are Ainge playing Emerson? It's because he doesn't know 100% if he's going to be here or not. And if he is, he needs a player fit or who can play pretty much across that back line. And Emerson's that sort of person. So I'm not against playing him to keep him fit, but I wouldn't go blaming Ainge for playing him to keep him fit. And also on how to say his name? Yang Min Hook. Yang Min Hook, definitely not a commercial signing. That isn't in Ainge's sort of mind to go out and sign a player because it will bring in the money. That's not Ainge. Ainge has said all deals all players that come through the club will be from his permission. And this isn't sort of Ainge's sort of style to go out, oh yeah, let's go buy this player because it will be a great commercial. That is Ainge. Ainge bought him because he thinks he'll be a great player for this club.
Also part of the thing too that probably helped Ange in the decision making and Spurs with the decision making when Youngman Hook did say that once he found out that Spurs were one of the clubs interested, he told his agent as well as I think the CEO of his club that that's the club he would like to go to, kind of just disregard any of the other rumors. When Spurs come in for me, that's the deal that I want to accept. And I thought that was something that Ange really values. We've heard that before. He wants players that want to play for Spurs. He doesn't want a guy that's going to come to Spurs because we're in the Europa League now, or he thinks that, he can compete in the Champions League and play at a high level because Spurs will get there. He wants someone that truly believes in what they're building there and wants to be a part of that club. And it looks like Youngman Hook pretty much said that in the best way that he could. And I think a lot of Spurs fans, whether they think it's a commercial signing or not, at least the kid wants to play for us. He's not the one selling the jerseys himself. He wants to be on that pitch and he wants to be playing. So that's something I can get behind.
Yeah, he'll come in, and I feel like he'll probably be on the peripherals in the training. I think he'll be in first team training. If he plays for us this season, upcoming in the second half, all depends on injuries and how players are performing. But yeah, we'll see come the end of start of January if he plays or not.
Alrighty. Well, Edward, thanks for coming on, sir. Thanks for providing the entertainment, and I look forward to if you're going to be available for tomorrow's festivities, since it should be around a more reasonable time for you, right? The game's in Korea.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. Or is it 8 o'clock?
Prime
it's 9
time.
o'clock tomorrow. It's 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. And I'm not working, so it's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to last for much longer. You're going to be back to the dark doldrums of 3 a.m. games sometime soon, I imagine.
Oh, mate, it's just going to be great. If they're 2 a.m., I don't care. Those are great because I'm home at like 1:40. So 2 a.m. is fine. But 5 a.m. games, I'm like, shit, I have to go to bed.
Yeah, and I hope you can enjoy it while it lasts. I'm learning, firsthand what it's like for you guys, in these past couple of games. So it's good experience for myself. And thanks for coming on, Edward. Appreciate you staying up for us.
Always a pleasure.
Have a good night.
You too. See ya.
See you, my man. Everyone, big up MV Joker Davis. Great member to this channel, and also has been a great, wonderful addition to these fan shows, to the TIFO watch-alongs, etc. He's just been great to us. So please, big up Edward. Always a great chat with him. And I did like what he had to say about Youngman Hook, because me personally, I saw that label being put on him, the commercial signing. Yes, there are going to be some sort of commercials incentives from it, but I did find that to be very harsh on the kid because he's only 18 years of age. It's not like he actually has that much notoriety or that much name recognition really about the world or anything like that. Spurs haven't signed him for even a big fee or anything like that. He just looks to be another example of kind of the Luka Vuskovic type of signing, someone who's supremely talented and is going to be potentially a superstar, but is only so young and is only so experienced. And so will need a lot of time to cook and develop. And Spurs are leaning towards that now more than they ever did before. And I'm totally for it. I'm totally for it. I think it's far better type of strategy and principles of what we're trying to build here. Then again, I hate to bring us back to those times, but what we were trying to do under, directors of football like Steve Hitchen and whatnot, where it felt like we had no idea what we were doing or what we were trying to build. Whereas now I actually can see a plan, whether people like it or not. And disagree with me, you're welcome to come on and have your say about it. But we're going to keep this show moving. Really appreciate everybody who has come on so far. In about 5 or 10 minutes or so, I'm about to take down the link. So if you've been planning on coming on and have been saving it, now would be a good time to do so. And again, if you were maybe looking for the link, because you lost it or something like that after I take it down, you are welcome to send me a message, or you can also email Dave's email, and then you can just let me know in the chat, and then I can send it on over to you. If you do email us, of course. But we're going to keep the show moving. And I believe after that, let me just make sure, take a look at my order. I think it's the Dermatron. Yes, it is. Dermot, how are we?
Not too bad, Jack. How are you this evening?
Doing all right, Tron. It's been a funny evening where I thought there would be business done this week, and it looks like we might have to wait maybe another week longer. And I think Spurs fans are getting anxious, they're getting impatient, and I don't necessarily blame them. But I'm going to start off first with you because you are a man of knowledge and an experienced Spurs fan on that question that I put in the chat. And the question we've been getting the show kicked off with. If you were to bring back any Spurs player from the past in their prime to the Ange Postecoglou team, who would it be?
Oh, I've been racking my brains because I've got two players in my head. But I would have to bring back Glenn Hoddle. That for me,
Waiting for that shout.
Yeah, he for me would suit Ange Ball down with tea. He really would. I mean, Glenn Hoddle's a legend of a player anyway, and do you know he played for us for a long time. Then he went to France to play for Monaco for a while as well, and just spellbound the French fans over there. Glenn Hoddle for me is just, yeah, he's God. Hoddle is God, and that's the player I would bring back. I mean, you can bring back many others. You can bring back probably Dave Mackay for the defensive of the 60s, probably bring back Martin Shivers, Steve Perriman of 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
Probably Pat Jennings as goalkeeper. There's so many players you could pick from over the years of Spurs. And to pick just one, I would have to pick Glenn Hoddle. Though for a goalkeeper, Pat Jennings, for me, be a good one to bring back. But we've got Vic, which is, think me and Philip both say the same thing. He's the next Pat Jennings for us. But yeah, Glenn Hoddle for me all day long.
I mean, that's something that I was hoping someone would say, because he's basically the best ever number 10, in Spurs history. I know Harry Kane is more the kid, but that he's called Glenn Goddle, like Stevie Frazier said, for a reason. And I remember way back in the day, Dermatron, we did that great kind of throwback watch along of one of the games. And what stood out to me about watching some clips of Hoddle was the fact that he just was playing left-footed, switches of play, like it was nothing, and could whip it in with his like outside the foot of his left foot and that type of thing. He just looked like basically the best number 10 you could create if you were to create like a number 10 in a video game. That's what he sort of looked like.
One game for me that shows what Glenn Hoddle's all about. It was when we played, it was in 1983-84 in the UEFA Cup, and we had Johan Cruyff at the time. I mean, in the late 70s, he was the greatest player in the world at one point. And he was slagging off Glenn Hoddle. And for 45 minutes, Tottenham scored 4 goals. All the assists came from Glenn Hoddle. 45 minutes. And that, if you watch the first half of that game, I forget who is it against. I think it was Ajax, if my memory, or Feyenoord. I can't remember. It's one of the two. But 45 minutes of Glenn Hoddle, just watch that first half. You can find it on YouTube. He absolutely destroyed Feyenoord or Ajax. I forget who it was. They destroyed the team in the first half purely because of Glenn Hoddle, the player he was. I mean, he was the most giftedest footballer just Britain has ever produced. And if he was in France, Michel Platini paid him the highest compliment. If he played for France, he would have got over 100 caps for France. It's scandalous that he was never used more for England, because they should have built a team around him, because they would have won something back then if they built a team like we did. We built the team around Glenn Hoddle.
Probably had the best hair of any Spurs player ever.
Oh, he did. He had the best perm, to be fair.
When I looked at him, when I met him in person, I mean, the hair to this day still holds up. It's incredible, the hair genes that guy has.
Just don't ask him to sing. That Diamond Lights, do not ask him to sing. Him and Chris Waddle. I was a young kid at the time, right? And to this day, there's 2 songs I will not listen to. It's Mick Jagger's and David Bowie's Dancing in the Streets, because I think why David Bowie overdone that to begin with, I do not know. And they stuck it on these greatest hits as well. And I'm thinking, I'd skip over it. No, and it's Diamond Lights, Chris Waddle and Glenn Hoddle and Chris Waddle. Why? Why put us through that torture? I mean,
It's just like I said, that
don't do that song.
The fact that he had that sort of hair and everything as well. I mean, like I said, it's like a number 10 as if you made him in a video game, type of player. That's what all the number 10s usually had too, was like Ginola and whatnot, right? The hair and everything involved with it. But what a player. And I was looking forward to that shout. And Dave Mackay has been mentioned a couple of times, and I did love to hear when we played Hearts that he's regarded by some as the greatest ever Scotland player ever. And He's
Yeah.
regarded as one of the greatest ever Spurs players ever. So to be then
He
regarded
is.
as also one of the greatest Scottish players ever, I thought that's just ridiculous to think about.
It is. We've been very lucky. I mean, the players we've had through the years. I mean, you look at John White, who sadly passed away just after we won our 3 trophies in the early 60s. But we've had Dave Mackay, we've had like Graham Roberts, we've had Paul Gascoigne, and you go through the history of Spurs. We've always been this entertaining side. Mickey Hazard, another one. We've always had players that entertain. And I feel this is my point now, get back onto this current squad with Ange. We're going back to that entertaining Tottenham way of playing. And we lost our way, we lost our DNA, we lost our values, we lost our principles of what we are as a football club. And since Ange has come in, it's a bit like I said it through the dark times to you and Dave that Bill Nick's soul has left the club. It's like the soul of Bill Nick's been brought back into the club and it's rejuvenated the club as a whole. It's like you can feel the spirit of Arthur Rowe, Bill Nick, John Cameron, who was part of the 1901 Tottenham FA Cup winning side. Jimmy Greaves, Dave Mackay, John White. You can feel the spirit of all these players that have played for us, that have been part of Tottenham's history. And it's rejuvenated the club. It's regenerized the club. And Ange, I've always said it, and I keep saying it, Ange is a mixture between Arthur Rowe, Bill Nick, and Keith Birkinshaw, all rolled into one manager. And that's what we've got. And look, Tottenham is back. I have my club back. I have the team that I supported as a kid back. And
is that because of the style of play, Dermatron, or is it because of the youngsters? A bit of both?
It's because of the style of play. It's because of the youngsters. It's because of Ange's no shit attitude, which I love. And me and Dave, being massive Celtic fans as well, we saw a lot of that up in Scotland. So we know what Ange's like. And it's about the youngsters. Tottenham have always brought through good youngsters. We've always done that. And the last one we brought in was really Harry Kane. And you look now, we've got Mikey Moore, we've got Lancashire, we've got Santiago. I know he's gone out on loan. But we have what we were made for. We have what we are. We have it back. And it's all down to Ange. And the transfers will happen. I keep saying this. Everyone expects transfers to happen now. You can't. It's a transfer window. How many transfer windows have we spent coming up to the end of the window? Like in January when we bought Kulu and Bentancur. Do you know what I mean?
Paul Connor.
Big
just
up
wants
Paul.
to say hello. And no problem at all, sir. We're going to be missing you, though. Miss your. Usually he's the closer, so we're going to miss our closer tonight, Paul. Dermatron, though, on what you're kind of saying about your restored faith and love for the club again via Ange Postecoglou, do you think he needs, though, because Edward was saying it, he needs a striker in order to deliver the trophies that Spurs fans are so desperate for? Do you think Ange is going to get what he needs this summer window? Is he going to be backed? And can he then go on and push for trophies once he is?
He will be backed, and he will get a striker. Whoever that striker is going to be, we don't know. If it's Ivan Toney, look, I'm not Ivan Toney's biggest fan, but if you look at it, he's Premier League ready. He knows what it takes to play in the Premier League. If you bought a player over from Europe, then he's got a surprise on defenders for the first 6 months because nobody's know how they're going to defend against him. So there's pros and cons and everything. But I think he will get a striker. He is being backed. He's being backed with the players he wants. And he got the likes of Paratici and John Lang in the background. Paratici's working his magic yet again. And if you think back to the Steve Hitchen times to now, we're a far more well-organised, more well-organised oiled team than we were under Steve Hitchen, where it was, what do you reckon, Daniel? Should we buy that player? Okay, we'll buy that player. Now it's more organised. Now it's more, you've got a direct line from Ange to Lang to Paratici and Levy, and they're all working as a team. Look, we all want transfers in now. We all want the players in before pre-season. 43 years I've been supporting Tottenham Hotspur. Transfers don't work like that. We're not playing EA Sports or Football Manager. And I understand fans are getting frustrated. I understand fans are starting to lose faith, but we can't lose faith because it's just the way it is. We just have to see how it comes, and it will happen. We will get the players in, and Ange will then get the players and then win us the trophy, which we will win this season. I don't care if we win the League Cup. It's a trophy. And I don't care. As long as we win the trophy, I want the trip to Wembley.
Hey, I mean, the Tiger Cup and the recent Japanese International Cup or whatever we won have already been,
we are
pretty
world
excellent
challenge
to me.
champions as well, Jack. I mean, we can't let that pass. We have just won the World Challenge Championship. So, we are world champions.
The trophy cabinet's going to need to be extended. It's going to need to get a new frame. It's going to need to get a new shelf. And all of a sudden, we've turned all of our preseason tours into practically, tournaments. It feels like the Spurs are now picking up trophies from. It's a great way to, probably frustrate fans even further. When it comes to the transfers, though, Dermatron, you're confident that we're going to bring in a striker, as it says in the title. It will be a striker. Or will it be a winger?
It'll be a striker and a midfielder.
Okay.
I can see 3 more coming in. For what I've been told, there's 3 more going in. Gallagher's not coming to us. He probably will end up at Atletico Madrid because now they're the favourites. I've been told this evening that they're the favourites to get Gallagher. But I can see Reguilon going to Brentford in part exchange for Tony plus cash. He played well at Brentford. That would make sense. The Eze thing, Eze will get done, but I think it's just a case of seeing it over the line and trying to sort out if they will accept in installments, which I think they will eventually. But I think they want a certain amount up front. So if it's 60 million, then they probably want 45 million up front, or 50 million up front, then 10 million on installments, which I think will happen. I think that's the way it will go. And I think Archie Gray can play centre-back, as we can see. He can play number 6. Mikey Moore is going to come in. I think he will be used this season as well. And what a talent he is.
Yeah.
He's the biggest talent, I think, at Tottenham we've had in a generation.
Is he our own Lamine Yamal, do you think?
Do you know what? I've seen him a few times this pre-season, and there's a bit of Paul Gascoigne about him.
Oh, okay.
And I remember Paul Gascoigne making these as a young lad, playing for Newcastle back in the 80s. There's a little bit of Paul Gascoigne about him. I just get that same feeling when I saw Paul Gascoigne, and when Gaza played for us. He's a legend anyway. And wherever he is, I hope he's well. Because I watched a documentary on him the other night, him going to play in China. It's the most funniest documentary you'll ever watch in your life because it's just Paul Gascoigne. But wherever he is, I hope he's well, because that man is a genius and he's a football legend. And we at Tottenham we do look after our former players, but I think he needs a little bit more looking after, because he was a once in a lifetime generational for a player. Mm-hmm. And we were lucky enough to have him at Tottenham for 2 seasons and took us to a cup final in that run in 91.
Mikey Moore does have that sort of.
Yeah.
It's hard to even describe. I don't even know if it's exactly flair that's in his game. It's just everything he does do, though, is done so easily and simply, and he makes most of the things that he can perform look quite easy. And I think that's always a sign of a brilliant player and someone who has an excellent, technical quality to them. And you could probably argue that Gaza was very similar to that. Dermatron, though, another question I may have for you, which is kind of further on the youth here. Do you think the youth will play far more than we expected this season? And have they looked even more comfortable playing this system than some of the first team players?
They have looked more comfortable because they played a lot of it last season, and they're younger, so they're willing to learn. They're willing to impress. They're willing to go that extra mile. And I think we will see a lot of the youngsters play this season. And everyone goes back to the class of 92 under Sir Alex Ferguson and Alan Hansen. You can't win anything with kids. Well, I think we got our version of that. We got the version of the class of 24. And I do feel we will be successful with them. and they are going to play more games this season. There's more competitions to play in, so you can see them playing in the early rounds of a League Cup or an FA Cup if we get an easy draw, or the early rounds of the Europa League. And games in the Premier League where he needs to rest players because of the big games coming up, he'll have no problem putting them in because they've got no fear. That is the problem. They have no fear.
Mm.
And that's what I'm 47. When I was 17, 18, 19, I didn't have any fear. I just head first into what I'm doing. I don't care. I've got no fear. And these youngsters have no fear. They'll go out. All they want to do is play football. That's it. That's all they want to do. And as long as they're playing football, they're happy. And Angie's great at bringing through new younger players. And I'm just so excited about this season. It starts 2 weeks tonight. And it's like Christmas coming up for me. Sunday's going to be Christmas Eve before the Leicester game. I think we can. I think this season we can win with kids. I think we'll have enough experience around them. But these kids are experienced in a ways themselves because of the matches they've played. They've been around the first team, so they know how these other players play. And I think we're getting a good blend of experience and youth at our club now. And I think this is going to be a better team than the Poch team. I think, we've got a better manager in charge who's a winner. And secondly, we've got players that want to play for Tottenham Hotspur. That will give them all the play for the shirt. They're not a Harry Winks. They're not a Eric Dyer or a Sanchez or a Danny Rose and that. I want to go and play for Juventus. Well, you ain't going to Juventus. We'll send you off to Newcastle instead. I mean, we've got players that want to play for us and want to play for the badge. And that's all we want. And if they do that, I'm behind them 100%, and I'm behind Ange 100%. So,
love it, Dermatron.
Ange will rise to the top, and he's going to rise his team to the top. So, yeah, come on, you Spurs. It's going to be a great season. I'm buzzing. Come on.
And before you plug your channel, the Big D earlier saying, big up Jack and Dermatron. I never realized Dermatron was from Gorey County, Wexford. I've been living there in the past 14 years. Small world. How have you guys not run into each other?
I don't know how we've not run into each other, but we must meet up for a coffee, man. Let me know, and emails on the on my challenge page. So let me know, and we'll meet up and have coffee.
Yeah,
wow.
Maybe you guys have. Maybe you guys ended up, cutting each other off or something on the road or something like that.
Yeah. Was he the fella that cut me up the other day? I wonder if it was you.
Exactly. He's the guy who cut you in line the other day. Big up to you, the Big D. You guys should absolutely meet up, and sounds like a lovely, lovely time. I'd be jealous of that. I'd love to meet the Dermatron out in Ireland. But give your channel a plug, please, sir. What's coming up?
Yeah, we were due to do a show tonight, but Dermatron's got a bit of an injury. So, look, we're going to put it back to tomorrow. We're doing it. Me and Tequila at the moment having this sort of bit of a football debate. Do fans really care about their club's history? I very much care about Tottenham's history, but Tequila's a bit more of a younger fan and he thinks more of the present than I do of the past. So we've got that coming out tomorrow. All the latest transfer news as it comes in, as we get it from our source, the latest breaking news, of course. And then we've got the watch along tomorrow, pre-match, post-match, whatever. So we've got a lot of shows coming up on THFC Till I Die with myself, Philip Brady, Tequila, and also Colin as well. And also we've got a new channel starting up in August called the European Football Network Till We Die, where we'll cover everywhere else by Tottenham. So Champions League, Europa League, League of Ireland. We're going to do Bundesliga, Serie A. We're going to do a lot of other leagues as well. So, Jack, any games in the German league you want to come on for a watch along, you're more than welcome. We're going to cover a lot of other European football as well this season. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be good fun.
I bet. And, I'd always take any invites to be able to watch, the crazy, my feeling is, and maybe people don't feel the same way about this, but oftentimes I think with how football works, you actually need to watch occasionally a really bad game of football to then appreciate some of the better ones. Really stinking, terrible, just defensive, cagey game, where it just ends up 1-0 with a sloppy, sort of goal over the line. sometimes that's good, I think, for your kind of
So
for your palate, let's say. It's like a bad meal, that helps you appreciate a good meal later.
So you've been watching a lot of Ireland playing recently.
Ireland, Air to Berlin. Air to Berlin, I'm always a big fan of any Sean Dyche football, to cleanse the palate, that type of thing. Dermatron, you know me. But appreciate you, sir. And thanks for coming on as always.
And it's always a pleasure coming on with you and Dave. And please hit like and subscribe on here as well. They're both great lads. I'm personally probably one of my best friends on YouTube. So thank you so much, guys, for everything you do for me and the channel and everything. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you and look to see you. I think, are you going to be on the pre-match build-up tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm on. Yeah, I'm coming on just for. Dave's brought me on to be the delusional one, so I thought just being my delusion.
It's nice that he's made it clear to you that that's.
Oh yeah. I'm here. I'm like the performing monkey. That's my job. I'm here just to play the drums and do stuff that then I'd be delusional at 9 o'clock in the morning. So.
Yeah, well, Tron, I think you can always just speak your mind, and maybe some of it might not always come off as deluded as you might think. You definitely have plenty of good things to say. Appreciate you, sir, and see you next time.
See you later. Come on, you Spurs.
Have a good evening.
You too now.
Big up to Dermatron. Please subscribe over to THFC Till I Die. I'm going to put his link in the chat one more time here for you guys to follow him over, show him some support. He is going to be on the pre-match build-up tomorrow with Dave. Sadly, I cannot make that one because it is going to be practically kind of not really middle of the night. It is going to be really late evening, but I will have to get some type of sleep before the watch along tomorrow. So I'm going to miss the pre-match buildup, and we're going to need a happy clapper on the panel. So Dermatron should be able to do the job perfectly in my position. But then again, he's been a regular on it for so long. He's been part of the institution of the pre-match buildup. Let's go into I think it's going to be the fourth or fifth guest of this evening. Again, if anyone is going to come on and have their say, feel free to do so. I did take down the link. If you did miss it or you maybe lost it, welcome to email Dave or I for it. Just let me know in the chat if you have done. And also you can text me if you need it that sort of way as well. But we do have 2 guests left. Welcome to end it off here. And we can have another fan show with Dave, who will likely be there for the next one this next Monday. But we do have only 2 guests left in case anybody did feel like coming on. We're going to go next to, I believe Sean did give up his spot. So we're going to go to Ribsy, and then we're going to end off with the one and only Sean Maddox. Ribsy 85 coming on. How you doing, Ribsy?
Hey, how are you, man?
Doing all right, sir. Well, it's been just kind of the regulars tonight. Hopefully that we got some debuts, but maybe you might get that for next time. And I've started people off with that question about players in their prime. So I'm going to have to throw that one at you. If you could bring any player back from the past in their prime to this Ange team, who would it be, Ribsy?
I'm going to have to pick Mousa Dembele. I mean, in terms of just a completely press-resistant box-to-box midfielder, I mean, is there any team in the world that wouldn't be improved by having him in his prime? He was absolutely unstoppable. And I can imagine with like Ange's team directions that are just basically like, get the ball forward and I don't care if you lose it. I don't care what happens. Just keep being positive with it. He would just take that and just run with it. Yeah, I think he'd be absolutely brilliant in this team. But I mean, whatever everyone else, all the picks that they've made as well, all perfect as well. I mean, there's so many to choose from. But like so many people, I reckon Mousa Dembele was just one of the finest. So
he's the first ever Spurs kit I ever bought, and then I outgrew it very, very quickly. So that was one that maybe I.
How old were you?
I think, gosh, it was, like I said, Villas Boas days when I was kind of first getting into it, post Redknapp at the end. So must have been 15, kind of maybe age 14, 15, around that sort of period. And Mousa Dembele was easily next with Gareth Bale and Modric, probably my 3rd favorite player, I think, ever at Spurs. And then maybe Sonny might have bumped a little bit ahead of him once, Sonny really started going into his prime with us. But yeah, Mousa Dembele, easily the greatest ball carrier and most aesthetically pleasing player, I think, for a long time in a Spurs shirt. And he would he be an even better Basuma for you, an even better one?
Yeah,
or is he like a mix of like Sarr and Basuma and like Bergvall? It's almost like, when you mentioned he's like a mix of all 3 really, and like a Bergvall as well.
Kind of, yeah. He was just he was a special player, and the skill set was just so effective. And any weaknesses in his game, I didn't see them when he was in his prime. He was just so good at regathering the ball, and he was so good at pressing, and he was so good at reading, getting into the right position to try and intercept. And he was just sensational. I mean, maybe it's rose-tinted glasses a little bit now because you think about it back in the day, and I can't even remember him doing anything. That didn't impress me. Obviously, as people are saying in the chat there, he wasn't a great goal scorer, but any other thing he did on the pitch was so impressive to me.
He joins a long list, though, I think, of Spurs players that their best years were with Spurs, despite how talented they were. And then a lot of people actually, when asked, that question, who's the greatest ever player in training, or who's one of the greatest ever players you played with, and you usually get very odd answers at times from certain guys, and Dembele just seems to be one of those. I think another example probably would be Ledley King as well, right? Plenty of people say who's one of the greatest English defenders of your generation, and so many of them say Ledley King, despite Ledley King barely playing for the English national team or anything like that. But they all just had this mutual respect and understanding that he was special. And I feel that way with Mousa Dembele too.
I think so. And it's one of those rare ones that maybe we kept him until the right time, and we actually did the right business at the time that he left as well, which is a very rare move for Spurs. So,
Well, that's a great transition, Ribsy, into the transfer window, sir. What do you be made of the fact that it doesn't look like the big name signings that we all want this summer could be happening this week? We will likely have to wait a bit longer. Are you frustrated? Are you kind of still retaining some hope? Have you lost any patience? Where do you kind of stand on the transfer window thus far?
Look, I am a little frustrated. I think that in terms of the income, if you want to talk outgoings, then I'm happy that they're moving a lot of the players out that clearly don't have a future at Tottenham Hotspur. And I think so often we haven't been able to get the deal that we want, so we hang on to them, and we've got these players that clearly they must be unhappy because they're not getting football and their careers, dwindling away. And we're not playing them, and the manager's saying, I don't want this guy. So you got to find a way to get rid of them. And sometimes that means sending them on a loan, covering their salary or some of their salary even, and not having to deal with having them around, the clubhouse when they're understandably disgruntled because they're not getting any football. So getting rid of them, great. That's a good thing. Bringing in players, though, is where the trouble is, right? Because when you're talking about a rebuild isn't just players going out; it's players coming in as well. And we were talking about this earlier, but when you're bringing players in, we do need those players for the future. So I'm totally on board with bringing these youngsters in. I think that's a great idea. You take a little bit of a punt on some of the younger players, and you accept that some of them just aren't going to work out. That's part of doing business when you're getting these young players in. You are rolling the dice a little bit, but there needs to be a balance as well. We need to bring some players in that are for right now. I think that there's also sort of a middle characteristic, that there's a middle category there. That's players that are there maybe for the future, but they're good enough to do the job now, and they're sort of on that cusp. And sometimes that can be extra frustrating for the fans when it's players like, say, Johnson, for example, that we brought in. And I don't think many people would say that he's not a Premier League quality player. It's just a question of whether he's a Tottenham Hotspur quality player right now. And it also feels as, and sometimes you think, okay, yeah, but you give them a bunch of first team football and they're going to improve.
Yeah.
And normally that's the case, but we've seen sometimes it's not. Sometimes that improvement goes up and it goes down, and they flatten off for a while, and maybe they get a bit too big for their britches, or maybe they're just carrying injuries because of the amount of football that they're playing, and it's not helping them to progress. I'm not suggesting we're doing anything wrong, or that even that getting Johnson was a bad move, because it could have been fantastic, but I haven't seen much improvement from him. And I think that there are some cases where we've got these players like, this is going to sound absurd, me comparing, but something like Bergvall or something, where you got a young player and you're looking at them play in this preseason, and you're saying, how brilliant does this kid look? And it's true, he does. He looks fantastic. But if when the season starts and we're here at preseason next season and we're asking ourselves, is he any different than he was last summer? Hopefully the answer will be yes. Hopefully he's much better. But we just don't know that. And that's the nature of getting the young players in. So it's just something we've got to face the reality of that. And that's why I feel like you need to get some players that are, 26, 27 or whatever, and bring them in as well. Because you got to rotate in that fresh blood and keep change. Even if you're not technically improving the team in some ways, you do it. It's been proven that you got to refresh some of the players every now and then, give them new surroundings, give them new coaches, new challenges, new competitions to play in, and they perform better usually. So I think that's something that we've so far fallen short on in this window so far.
Do you think the young kids are giving them a bit of a scare? Like, do you think these older players are kind of like looking over their shoulder and kind of going like, geez, this kid's annoyingly good?
Well, that's it. And the thing is about the kids being good is, I think some of the other guys in this show have said is something I completely agree with, is that some of these players, when you're a 27-year-old player and you've played multiple clubs, you've got your own idea about how football's supposed to be played. You're worried about looking stupid. You're worried about affecting your personal brand or whatever. Whereas you got a kid and Ange says, there's the enemy, run at them. They got no reason not to do it. Their biggest priority. Well, exactly. The biggest priority for them is impressing the coach at that point in their career. So they'll do whatever Ange says for them to do. And, obviously Ange's tactics are going to work better if there's got people following the tactic doing them. I mean, that's a bit of a no-brainer, that one. But look, I think it's the reality of it with some of the players. Sometimes with some of the slightly older players, it feels as though they've got their ideas of how football's supposed to be played. And even though they might very much be trying to follow the tactic, and in their minds, they're probably not doing anything but trying to follow the tactic, they've still got ingrained, learned behaviors and methods on the field that some things can't be changed, or can only be changed with a huge amount of effort. And when they get tired, they fall back into the old practiced, techniques as opposed to what they've been told to do.
I just wonder if, like, in a lot of cases where, like, having young players around, though, that are playing as well as they are is only going to be a good thing for the long haul, because even if these first-team players do end up not actually being good enough for Ange ball, at least they're being kind of scared right now, because what these young players are doing is executing what Ange is asking of them on the football pitch. But then also you'd wonder if, like, in training and then some of the fitness drills, they might be going that bit extra harder. I know I would, if I was, the younger guys, like when they do the sprints, they're probably just trying to beat, whoever's in front of them, even if they're dog tired and, practically, exhausted afterwards. I just think that only just breeds a good environment, because it's like, it's competition. You don't want people feeling comfortable. And we've said that before about this team, that there are a lot of positions in the past where even if it was, a world-class player in the starting role, like, they just had no competition whatsoever. So they could get away with some stinker performances. And you feel like with these younger players, not really as much the case now. Like, they could play instead of them and maybe do exactly what Ange is wanting. So I think it's only breeding like a good environment, actually, of like kind of no friendliness. In a way, it's kind of like business. It's like competition. And I think that's kind of what Spurs have been missing for a few years now, at least in my opinion. When it comes to, though, like, when it comes to priorities, though, of what we wanted to bring in this summer, Ribsy, like, I had left back cover for Destiny Udogie is a big one. We wanted new strikers and wingers. Are we going to still get like the majority of what maybe Spurs had been asking for at the beginning of the season? Or do you think it's going to be another, we get some of what we want and then we don't get some of what we want?
Look, probably not. I don't think it's from any lack of trying. I think that we've brought in a fairly decent recruitment team, and combining that with, Paratici, which is still doing some kind of behind the scenes nebulous job at Spurs, but I think that the people we've brought, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter just ripping into Lange and stuff, and I'm like, all right, well, he hasn't had much for time to get anything done. So let's give him a little bit of.
Do you mind if I interrupt you just on that? I think that's similar to what Paratici had when Paratici first came in. Remember, everybody hated him and called him a con, and now all of a sudden it's their favorite sporting director of all time. It feels a bit.
He is a con though, but he's our con. So.
You're right, actually. Sorry. He is literally is. He is definitely guilty. But no, it feels quite similar to what Paratici had to go through, where he's been in the job 2 months, and then everybody's like, why hasn't he brought in 20 players yet? And you're just like, geez, feel bad for them. Sorry.
I get it. Like people are getting frustrated that we did some early business last window, not last window, last summer. And it felt as though that was the new sort of standard. But the thing is that every transfer is unique. Sometimes what they were asking for Tony at the start of the window was ridiculous. No one was going to pay that. Now no one's going to pay that, so they're asking for less. True. So if we pulled the trigger early on that, we would have overpaid by 40 million or some ridiculous amount. And then would you be happy if we did that? Because you never would have learned that the price was lowered, but also you would have paid far too much for a player.
Fair
point. We got to just the problem is that we don't know exactly what players Spurs are really interested in, and for all the rumors throwing around, so much of it is just the player agent on the other end trying to drive up the price or improve the interest from the club that's currently talking to them. So look, it's we just don't know, and that's the frustrating thing about transfer windows, is that so much of it is speculation and intentional disinformation, and we just bite it and follow, because that's all we can do while we're waiting for the football to start again, because we all just want to watch football. Let's be honest, but the answer is in terms of what we're going to get in between now and the end of the window. I think with the performance of the youngsters that we brought in the midfield, I think it would be insane to buy Gallagher at the moment. I don't know why that would still be something that we'd be interested in, but maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to do it.
Apparently he's headed to Atletico, but according to Fabrizio Romano. But what's been strange about this window, I've been doing this. This might be my 3rd or 4th transfer window. Doing this stuff with Dave, and this one feels like the least accurate the ITKs have ever been. This one where all the rumors have just been all over the place. I feel like they keep backtracking what their original saying, and then they go back to it's just been all over the place. And then the 2 signings that we have made this summer have come completely out of nowhere, like with no any, maybe one person who might have actually had an inside source was on it, but none of the big names or anything like that have really had any inkling. And I did hear something or another about Daniel Levy and Johan Lang. Apparently they did try to sort of stop that type of thing of, inside sources leaking out information, and wonder if that's actually true, if that's because that would sort of check up or would hold up.
The evidence would. The evidence would back that up, because what we are hearing is disjointed. We've over this window, or before the window and through the window, we've been linked with just about every striker in Europe in some capacity. So, obviously we're not looking at every striker in Europe. At least I hope we're not.
Remember the striker list was hilarious. The striker list was 10 names long. It was like, geez,
it got to the point where everyone just looked at it and went, wait a minute, no, something's wrong here. So, and now there's some rumors out today. I don't know whether anything's changed, but I saw people talking about Osimhen again with player transfers to Napoli, and that would potentially link up with the rumors of them looking at Kulusevski earlier in the window. But all of it could just be rubbish. I don't want to trade away Kulusevski, because that'd make Davo do his nut. So after how much protection of Kulusevski he's given over the preseason. But Osimhen would be brilliant, obviously, but I don't want to give away half our team to bring him in either. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Ribsy, did you have any final maybe things that you wanted to touch on that I didn't get to let you?
No. I'm happy, man. This has been fun. Good to chat.
Any expectations for tomorrow?
I don't really care about the result. As long as we play positive football and we get to see the young guys go out and get more football. I want to see the young Korean guy. He's apparently
Young
starting
Min
for the
Hyuk.
opposition. Yeah, that's cool that he's playing against us. Hopefully, if he scores, the guys give him a pat on the back or something as well. But well, who knows?
I just
That
don't
would
want
be
him to
weird, wouldn't
mix
it?
one of our players like Lamine Yamal did, Region, or like something like that, and then we have an injured player from like Young Min Hook trying to impress everyone and
Oh
stuff
yeah,
like
don't
that.
do that. Yeah,
That's what
no,
I'm actually genuinely
mm.
worried about. I wonder if he's going to be super motivated to impress Spurs fans, and then we're just trying to go through the motions of getting in shape, and he might tear some people apart. It's in a way probably a
You've
good
put
thing.
that out in the universe now, Jack.
Oh no,
That's now your fault if that happens.
it's definitely at this point it probably will. We'll get maybe then let's play Ben Davies at left back, so we could don't risk anything in that case. But yeah, I look forward to seeing Young Min Hook. I think he will be fun to
Yeah.
watch, and wonder if he'll be extra motivated to perform some flicks and tricks because he seems like that sort of guy.
Yeah.
Like from what I could tell,
Yeah,
he's a
he's
very
slick.
tricky
Yeah.
flair type of guy. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, I hopefully they don't train that out of him. I love to see that in a player.
Well, that's why he picked us and not Pep Guardiola, probably. Instead, he wants Ange Ball, so he doesn't get the life taken out of him in terms of his skill and flair. Ribsy,
For sure.
pleasure as always, sir.
Thanks, man. Talk to you
Thank
at the match watch along.
Yeah, I was going to say, you also get prime time, I'm assuming, right? Enjoy it while it lasts.
That's it. I will. Trust me.
Alrighty. Have a good night, sir.
Gotcha.
Or good rest of your day. Sorry. Good rest of your day. See you, man. Big up to Ribsy, everybody. Absolute legend, absolute GOAT, Mount Rushmore, as I like to call him, of this fan show and of this channel. Patrick Vineyard, KPV, we missed you on today's fan show, sir. Love to see you next time. And he says, big up, everyone. Hope you are well. It's time we win the FA Cup this season. Come on, you Spurs. This is our time. And he's been a member for 25 months as well. KPV, you've been with us for a long time, sir. I know you brighten up all of our days because you just have that sort of aura about you where you are a very fun person to be around. And I hope you do feel really confident about this upcoming season, KPV. I'd be really glad to hear that. I know you haven't had the best last couple of weeks or so. Neither have I really. And, it's good to have a positive mindset, at least, about Spurs and have that sort of raise our spirits. So would love to see you back on the fan show next week, KPV, if you have the time for it. And we definitely do miss you over here, sir. And I would love to see you when I get to go to a game this upcoming season, if you are going to be around for it. Big up to you. And really appreciate your support. And might as well bring on Sean now, who is going to be our closer this evening, and ask him, because I know he believes in the quad. Sean, do you believe in the FA Cup, or are you getting a vibe from a different trophy? Is it going to be the Europa League, Carabao? What's it going to be?
I mean, I think we could have a pretty good cup run. I think Europa League is the one that I probably want the most. Again, I think that we're probably one of the best teams in that tournament.
Mm.
So if the club really puts an emphasis on that trophy, there's no reason we can't go out and win it. If West Ham can do it, our team's better than West Ham's was. And again, I think that that would be a great one to break the drought.
Yeah. And if Olympiacos can win a freaking Conference League, that was also ridiculous to see them go on and win something too. It shows that anything can happen in these respective tournaments. And looks like you're getting more of a vibe from the Europa League than you are from the FA Cup. So the FA Cup maybe next year won't be our year this year.
I still think we could push in a domestic cup as well. I just think that given the choice, if we could only focus all out on one alongside kind of going for the Prem, I would go for the Europa League. I just think it's a more prestigious one. But I also think that to a degree, it's a little bit easier because we don't have to fight Man City in the final.
Yes. I'd love the Europa League for that reason. Like the toughest teams you end up coming up against are a bit later down the road, but some of the smaller teams end up being a bit trickier than you think, and you end up going to all these cool, cities in Europe. Of course I don't, but in my head I am, when we're playing these teams that, you get to go to Prague, all these cool places. I love the Europa League.
Again, it seems like a more achievable trophy this season while the team is still kind of developing. Again, we kind of got that first taste of Ange Ball. We had a bunch of players kind of starting to get used to the system. We're starting to bring some of the youth through. So again, I think this team will be significantly better in 1 year. So that's kind of why I think if you focus on the Europa League, where you don't have to kind of go against Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea, or United if they're playing well, it's a great chance to kind of get that mentality together, so that when you do go into a cup final, you're feeling a little more confident.
Yeah.
I can't watch us lose another cup final.
Don't put that in Brad's head. He's
And
had to go through way too many. He's had to go through way too many cup final defeats. That was hard
Yeah.
to listen to. Felt
And
bad
like
for the
half
guy.
of them are to Man City. So if we
Yeah.
find a cup we can't play them in, it significantly increases our odds. It's funny because we can beat City in the league, cannot beat them in a cup final.
Very good point. And just means we have to avoid them at all costs. Just keep it to 2 games a season, both against Man City. Stay away from them as much as we can. But I'm starting people off with that first question, Sean, about any player in their prime that has played significantly for Spurs. Who would be the best that you would bring back to an Ange Postecoglou team? Who would you like to bring back?
I mean, I feel like there's so many players that I just love to watch. Van der Vaart was always my favorite. He got me into it. I don't think of all the available options that he's necessarily the biggest available game changer. Again, Gareth Bale is a great shout, but I think our biggest problem right now is that midfield balance. So I would have to go in for Mousa Dembele. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you and I maybe became Spurs fans around a similar period, Sean, unless I'm speaking for you here. Was Mousa Dembele he was my first ever Spurs kid. He was probably third in line for maybe my favorite Spurs players that, first it was Modric, then it was Bale, and then it was probably Mousa Dembele. What was he kind of similar trajectory for you?
I don't feel like I ever truly appreciated him until he left, and we were dealing with Victor Wanyama and some other guys in that midfield. I think he was underrated in that, even by myself. Again, I think Van der Vaart was the player I got into it. But again, if you look at our problems right now, a lot of it comes down to kind of that 6 and a bit of the ball progression through midfield. And what Dembele could do was he didn't lose. First of all, he was impossible to take the ball off of.
Yeah.
That press resistant. But also he could progress that ball through midfield. And I feel like that's where we've struggled sometimes, is kind of that initial progression to get the ball into the attack. Again, the attack hasn't done enough last season. There's some upgrades we probably need. We can get into that in transfers. But I think that balance in midfield has been one of the biggest problems last season. That feels like we're getting closer to finding it with Gray and Bergvall, but we never found it a lot last season.
Yeah. Is he a mix of any current Spurs players, do you feel like, Dembele? Do you see anything in certain Spurs players that he had?
I mean, I feel like he's probably somewhere in between Bergvall and Gray in terms of their best attributes, with a little bit more dribbling kind of ability, and kind of you have that physicality, but in terms of kind of what his technical skills are, it's kind of a mix, I think, between the two of them.
I think that's very apt. I think then maybe you'd hope that someone like an Archie Gray could kind of at least physically kind of develop, because he's still so young, so he doesn't have to be at that sort of physical shape yet. But you could see him for how tall he is, how intelligent he is, kind of almost looking like a Mousa Dembele, who is just also just such a man mountain, really, of a person, in that midfield. The way he could dribble it as if he was a silky little winger, but then he had the body of like a 6'4", 6'3" midfielder. And Archie Gray could try to do something similar. I think he himself is a very tall lad.
I mean, if you could just take Papa Metasar and improve his kind of ball carrying ability and bulk him up a little bit, I think you'd have something getting closer into that mold of what we would be missing. But because again, I think right now he covers a lot of ground, but he's not as imposing. So I think that's an area for him to work on in terms of improving some of those. because I think of all the players, he has maybe a chance to really fit in that role. Where again, I think the difference with Gray is I think he'll just be slightly more of an anchor. Where I would imagine Mousa Dembele playing more of like an 8 in this system.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't give him quite the same kind of crunching tackling responsibility that I think I want Gray to do a little more of.
Absolutely. And I've done this as an ugly transition, from this conversation into the transfer window. Sean, where do you stand on it with your original priorities? Like I said, everybody wanted to bring in a striker and a winger. Do you see that still happening? Do you have some impatience, or are you still patient? Where do you stand on the transfer window so far?
I mean, I've been pulling my hair out reading all of these transfer rumors about these great players that we are supposedly interested in and have taken no action to bring to the club. But at the same time, I mean, I think if I go back from so again, I think I'm a bit nervous just because I feel like I wanted these players in preseason, so we had a chance to start getting them kind of up to speed ahead of the start of the season. So that's been probably the bigger frustration. Again, I think as a Spurs fans, we're used to almost no activity until that last week, and then a flurry of activity. I mean, we've been a little bit more active earlier under kind of Paratici in certain windows, but with the summer disruptions of the tournaments, I don't think I'm as concerned. Again, I think they'll get players in. I just think that the timeline would have been nicer to have them in a little bit sooner. But again, if they get the players in, I can't complain. But again, when we get 2 weeks out, that's when I'll be really nervous.
So I think we're about, a month away from August
Yeah.
30th. So you're kind of telling me check back in with you in about 2 weeks or so.
Essentially, at that point, if we haven't really started to get these players in, I'm going to be nervous. Again, if they're negotiating kind of the final parts of deals 2 weeks out for a handful of players, and there's some credible sources there, then we're probably in okay shape. But again, I just don't think it does a lot of good to bring them in super late, especially the wingers or anything in that part of the system. Again, I think I said it earlier in the comments, but a striker we can bring in the day before the window on deadline day. I mean, I like him obviously before the Prem starts, but I don't think there'll be a lot of time needed to tell a striker how to play in this system, because all you need to tell them is chase after the ball like a lunatic and stand in front of goal and tap the ball in the back of the net. Again, and that's why Richarlison's so great in this system. Again, he's got some limitations, but because he runs like no one else and just chases the ball nonstop, and after kind of getting his situation sorted, he was tapping the ball in. He was kind of in the right spot and just making runs and doing his job as a striker. And I think that most strikers could do that. And if you bring in like a Gyökeres or Ivan Toney, someone who's even more talented, they don't need a bunch of time to figure out, stand in front of goal and put the ball in the back of the net. Because I think that's the one part of the system that's not complicated in terms of tactics or awareness. Obviously, you need someone with the fitness to be able to press, but all they have to do is stand near the goal and run around. So I don't think that's as hard to get up to speed on in terms of their role within the system. Where like the wingers, or like if you're bringing in a fullback, it's a much different thing to get used to in terms of, okay, this is when you go forward. This is where I want you when you're inverting. But again, I have faith we'll get at least 2 more signings through. I just don't think they'll be early, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe a sad reality that we're starting to kind of come to terms with. And some people have gone further to think that there won't be anything happening at all, which Brad Matthews is saying Spurs fan base is like a nuclear reactor, a meltdown only a moment away. I hope nuclear reactors don't actually melt down that often, Brad Matthews, because it seems like in our case we're having those meltdowns a little too much. With what we were just saying about maybe the players that are coming in and the striker. And if they were to come in late, do they hit the ground running? I think it was Edward or it was Brad that said earlier about Mickey van de Ven coming in towards the very, very end of the window and just hitting the ground running straight away. So you're kind of likening that to the striker as well. Like if they're good enough, they don't need a whole lot of time to, embed into.
Yeah, again, I don't think the striker in this system is as complicated. I mean, honestly, the center back role is not. It's a very demanding role in terms of you need specific attributes to do it, but I don't think it's so complicated in terms of move the ball quickly and get it forward. Again, I think it's those midfield roles that are probably the most difficult to learn in terms of how you find the balance in the attack and making sure the communication and the chemistry is there. So, and again, we got Archie Gray in early. I think he will be very involved in kind of the midfield this season, and you have Bergwall in there learning the system. And again, any of the academy kids, as we've seen, know the system. They already can play it. They're at times better than the first team. And again, I think that everyone's kind of already touched on it, that aspect of their only goal is to impress Ange and follow his instructions. And so they have nothing else to kind of distract them from that.
And I need to ask you this question because I think you're a brilliant person to, get your mind, kind of cracking in on this. I don't know why I phrased it that way, but Mikey Moore and these youngsters, I mean, they've just been playing so well that plenty of people like yourself, Sean, have alluded to the fact that they're actually looking even more comfortable playing this system and doing what Ange is asking of them than even the first team players. And do you feel that way? Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at preseason, Mikey Moore, I mean, he's got the dribbling ability that you really want from the wingers, but he's got the tactical awareness of where the ball is going to end up when the system's played correctly and he gets into that spot. And that's a lot of the thing is what we had when Son and Kane were at their best was that telepathic understanding of where they needed to stand and what run the other one was going to make so they could play them in. And then that's where we haven't gotten to with Ange ball yet in terms of the fluidity of the attack is the players having that understanding so that they're timing that run correctly or they know that the player's making that run so they don't have to look up. They play that ball knowing the player is going to get to that back post. And again, I think when we saw a lot of the times when like our defenders were doing well and we were getting goals from like, the defenders and the wingers crashing that back post, again, that happened because they understood where they were supposed to stand and be. And that's where we haven't had. Sometimes we've had issues with the fullback and the winger not being on the same page and getting in each other's way and kind of clogging up those lanes. And that's what I expect us to improve on this season. And I think the youngsters will be helpful because they're aware more so. They've been playing that system successfully. So again, I think just more people on the same page. And then it's about, okay, what partnerships work with certain players on the field and just kind of finding those right combinations and kind of balancing the team in certain areas.
Do you feel like, though, there could be a player that might end up displacing somebody in the first team? Like, could Madison's spot end up being taken by Bergvall? Could Bissouma's spot be taken by Archie Gray? Mikey Moore takes Brennan Johnson's. Could you see that happening?
Easily. I think the person I would be the most worried about their spot is Bissouma because he's so inconsistent of a player. I could see Ange getting frustrated with Johnson at times and benching him, but I actually expect Johnson will be a lot better this season. It does feel like he's gotten a better understanding of what is going on and how to just kind of clear up the system a little bit more. I mean, we're seeing a lot more goals out of him and assists in this preseason. So I think he's showing more awareness. But at the same time, even if like we're seeing some of these players as great kind of options to change the game off the bench, there's nothing wrong with that. If Johnson is your guy that comes on 60 minutes into the game to kind of inject something into that offense and just increase the pressure and really go for late goals, and he scores 10 or 12 goals, can you be mad? If that's the role that he's best suited for? Again, it's about Ange finding out, how do I use these players most effectively?
Yeah.
And kind of what's best for the team.
That's often the case with managers, right? Is that they can get caught in between of that, like, trying to make every single player perfectly suited for what they want in their system. But sometimes it is a manager's job to coach and to manage and then look at what are the best attributes in this player. How can I get the most out of that while not compromising my own system or my own tactics too much? And that is what makes a good coach versus maybe a more stubborn coach. And Ange Postecoglou has come across more often than not as someone who will never really make too many concessions to the tactics, but actually will seemingly work with players that aren't the most, high of quality or something like that.
And I think even if players aren't fully displaced, I think the added competition could just help improve some of the inconsistency in the performances, because we'll have people we can turn to if stuff does not go according or someone's going through a purple patch. Because again, that's been and there will be injuries. There's a lot of games. Injuries have been increasing just generally based on the number of games that in the professional level. So there's going to be lots of minutes, and you want a deeper rotation and guys that can fill in.
Just sorry, Sean, but I do want to ask you another question here, just because I'm seeing it in the chat from people. DeFarsher is saying, Madison is still in that horseshoe mindset. Alexander Villaris is saying that if Madison still keeps playing poorly, he should be moved. He's had enough chances. I think someone else is pretty much, Jazz Fusion saying Berge taking over the minute madman. I mean, what do you make of the fact Madison seems to be under pressure from a lot of Spurs fans? It's now not totally an uncommon opinion to say that Madison, doesn't have much longer.
Yeah, no, again, I think that Madison needs to step up his game. I think what I've actually seen in preseason has been a drastic improvement over where he was since the injury. Again, we're seeing more decisive forward passes. And again, I think that, if he's not fully there, then Bergvall can compete for that spot. If you bring in Eze, that's a lot of direct competition. And again, in a top squad, nobody should be 100% guaranteed or safe for their starting spot. That it's laziness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In Madison's case, I just think he is only probably getting that bit of fear, from these youngsters who are playing so well. Like, I wonder if he's kind of looking over his shoulder a bit and kind of thinking, what, maybe life isn't going to be so comfortable for me here at Spurs. I do have to, be focused, and I can't get away with a few bad performances in a row. So it's only really a good thing at the end of the day that he's being put under this type of pressure from whether it's the fan base or even the younger players.
Again, we've seen the level that Madison can play at when he's at his best. And I think that potentially more competition can help get him to that level more frequently. And again, if one of the youngsters ends up being better than him, then Madison sits on the bench. And that's what life is like as a professional footballer.
Yeah.
The best players should be playing. This has to be a meritocracy if you're going to succeed. I mean, if you look at Man City, the quality of some of those guys that get benched, and sometimes for like the smallest reasons, like Pep has changed the center backs whenever they made a single mistake, and you don't see them for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And again, sometimes that's just the case.
I mean, even think of Josko Gvardiol, right? He had like a horrible first 3 months, at Man City, and then he was benched, I think, for like a long period until he got another opportunity, and then he played really well and took it. But it's it's a very good point that you bring up with Man City. Like some of the times they bench their players, you're like, geez, like what's even the reason other than I guess he hasn't scored in 2 games or like something like that, and it's that ruthless. It's a very good point.
Again, I think to be constantly winning the biggest trophies, you need a bit of that ruthlessness. Again, there was a reason that Sir Alex Ferguson was so successful for so many years, is because he didn't compromise on that. Again, you listened to him and you did your job, or he found someone else who could do your job better.
Yeah, beautifully put there. Well, Sean, did you have any other final points or talking points I didn't get to let you talk about?
I think the only other thing I wanted to say was just about that Korean winger.
Yes.
Again, I think that what we've seen is they're bringing together a group of 17 to 19-year-olds that are looking like they could be the future of the club. I mean, you got quite a few talented names there. And again, I think he's just part of that plan of we're seeing Spurs building for the future. So when Son eventually is, again, too old and has to leave the team, you have another left winger. Then you have Jamie Donnelly as probably somewhere in the center. You have Archie Gray, and so many other young, talented players that I think they're building a group. Vuskovic is in that same age range. So again, it just makes sense. I don't see, obviously, again, it's a nice commercial benefit, but again, if you can find that next Son, then why wouldn't you sign him?
Fair point. Fair point. And what I like about him personally is just he is different to Sonny in that, from what I can tell, this kid looks like he likes a flicker or a trick. He looks like he enjoys basically embarrassing his opponents and has a lot of just flair to his game, which I really enjoy and I think would suit this Ange Postecoglou system. He kind of invites that type of player to express themselves in that type of way, and he looks really comfortable in those wide areas by the looks of things. And it looks like a good recruitment from the scouting department in just terms of player profile.
That's a little bit of what I miss from when we had kind of peak Dele Alli. It was just that flair player who's like, no, I'm going to nutmeg you and go past you and embarrass you. And again, if we're seeing that from honestly, I don't remember his name. I haven't learned it yet.
Young Min Hyuk, great name, I think.
But if we're learning it from him, I mean, we're seeing that from Mikey Moore on the other side of just skilling past players. And again, that's kind of those dangerous options on the wings that work well. We need players that can beat that guy when the teams are in that low block and pick out that pass.
Yeah, excellently put, Sean. And unless you had any other final talking points, then I might see you. Well, it's going to be a pretty early one for you. Are you going to be able to catch any of the game tomorrow?
It depends on how great my connection is on my phone as I'm going on the subway. I have like a 40-minute subway ride, but I'll probably be on the subway by like 6:55. So I'll be trying to watch the first half at least on my phone. We'll see. I mean, I might just get stuck watching a replay or highlights.
How's the DC Metro these days?
It's still functioning. I can't complain too much in that regard.
No.
Again, the fortunate thing is I'm like one of the second stops, so I'll find a seat and I'll sit down for 40 minutes and hopefully have enough connection. There's one or two spots where it gets a little dead, where I could potentially lose the chance to watch it. But again, I've watched other games on there if I've been lucky. On the Metro, so we'll see.
Well, I appreciate your dedication to Spurs and also to us as well, Sean. And I hope you do get a strong connection for tomorrow and you are able to catch most of the game, because we do get to watch Youngman Hook in action coming up against our players. And Ribsy didn't like the fact that I spoke into existence.
I
The
mean,
fact that he might be going really hard against some of our guys. He did not like that idea.
I'm hoping that Spurs play just has like a full match replay at a later time, and then I can just sit down and watch it on the big screen.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do when I was gone for one of the games, and it took forever, it felt like, for them to actually edit it and then re-upload it, in order for me to do that. So
Well, I mean, I'll have that to look forward to when I really want to see what he can do.
yeah, there you go. Well, Shawnee,
I
thanks for being patient. Thanks for being the closer for this evening. And
no
I'll see you
problem.
next time.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Have a good one. Big up to Sean Maddox, absolute legend, becoming a main institution of this fan show as well and of this channel. Really, really good to us, and just a good guy in general, and has great things to say. And it's kind of like Dave, he's becoming one of the youth experts, I think, of this channel and of the Spurs community of ours. And that looks like that's the end of the fan show here. Paul Connor, if you're still listening, I apologize for getting to this so late. You've been a member for a whole year now. It feels like you've been a lot longer than that, if I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like you've been with us for a long time now. And this membership, I don't think, is doing you the full justice. But thank you for your year of support. And I look forward to growing with you. If you can tolerate us for that long, like maybe Jacob Anderson or KPV has, if you do tolerate us as long as they do, I would absolutely commend you. And he's saying, can you believe it's been a year? Time flies when you're having fun. Thanks for the great content, you and Dave. Our Troopers, my favorite Spurs channel. I'm hoping for more than one signing. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Black Cap Army. Me too, Paul. I definitely would appreciate more than that one signing. And when you look at just on this, Paul, actually, and then I'll give my other thank you to you. But when you look at this season window and what maybe majority Spurs fans had as a priority list, I saw that a striker was one. Definitely another winger of some kind was a priority. I had a backup left back as one of them, so that would be three, using a very American way of counting with my hands, as you can tell. And another one was Basuma competition as a fourth. And there probably were some other ones that people wanted in there too, but at least four, right, that a lot of us were expecting. Maybe Archie Gray qualifies as maybe the Basuma competition there. So it's still not the greatest on paper, though, by the looks of things when it comes to addressing some of these priorities. And will they get it all done in the next month? I'm with a lot of other people. I think they will sign a striker or a winger. Maybe they'll sign both. I'm not too confident of that, but I really need them to also look at that left back cover for Destiny Udogie. I think that is an underspoken, or maybe not a sexy, kind of signing priority that we bring up all the time, but it is very necessary that we provide some cover for Destiny. And I'm not seeing many rumors or anything of it. That being said, I just said earlier, I don't really buy into much of what the ITKs are spewing this summer. And other summers I felt like they've been on the ball in the past, but this one, I don't know, they just seem all over the place. So I might just wait for it to happen, I guess. With the way things are going, we'll just have to wait for it to just all of a sudden appear, whatever signing comes through. But thank you for your support for us. You've been really good to Dave or I. You've been an excellent addition to these fan shows, to this community in general. Thanks for supporting our little channel and this little neck of the Spurs YouTube woods. And thank you, Paul, for just being a top gem in this group, and been a really good guy to many others. You've really reasonable. You have your opinions, but you express them, in a very calm and orderly manner, and you're very respectful, good kind of role model for the rest of us, Paul. So we appreciate you, sir. I also love your accent, by the way, too, when you do come on and have your say. And so I'm sadly going to miss it for tonight, but hopefully I can have it Monday when Dave joins us. But big up to you, Paul. Thank you for your support for this channel of ours. And that looks like that's the end of the show. And thanks to everyone that's come on. Thanks to Jacob Anderson for celebrating for so long with us as an elite member, 30 months, you absolute legend. Thank you, sir. And KPV with us for 25 months, Paul with us for 12 months. Looking forward to you guys at some point making your debuts on the fan show, or not KPV's case, but it's been a while. Jacob Anderson, if you ever did want to come on, would love to meet you, would love to have a chat with you. Or as well, since you are an elite member, like I said to you earlier, please reach out to Dave or I if you haven't already. I know we haven't been the most consistent about doing that, but we would like to do even better by people like yourself who've been very good to us. And we would love to give you guys even more for what you're supporting us with, even more perks and benefits. So feel free to get in touch with us about Jacob Anderson if you want to have your Spurs story put out for all the rest of the members. And thank you to many of you guys that were in the chat with me tonight. You were all very kind and very reasonable, and plenty of times I said absolutely delusional, happy clapping things like I usually tend to, but you guys have been very good to me and very nice to me. And I look forward to seeing you all for tomorrow, bright and early. It's going to be 3:30 a.m. kickoff time for the watch along for me. So I'm getting I'm getting into the ropes of what you guys out in Australia, Asia, all of the other parts of regions of this beautiful planet of ours, where you guys have to, or what you guys have to go through on a regular basis with these watch alongs, with these games. I mean, it is crazy what you guys do in order to keep up with this great football club. You guys are all top supporters, and I look forward to doing it again, seeing what it's like of what you guys have to go through. And we'll be having the pre-match build-up tomorrow for all of you members. Match preview is already up between Dave and myself, and look forward to seeing you guys all for the match day festivities tomorrow. Thank you for all the support. Thanks for being with me throughout the show. Thanks for all the comments in the chat. I feel like it was a pretty active chat throughout. And thanks to everybody that came on: Brad, Dermot, Edward. We had as well Shawnee Maddox, of course, and we had Ribsy too. It was, he comes on really in the early times of the morning, but it is always a pleasure to have Ribsy because he's, like I said, one of the absolute, Mount Rushmore goats of this channel. So it is nice to catch up with Ribsy when I can. So thank you to you guys for coming on, expressing your opinions and having your say. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night. Have a good rest of your evenings or a good rest of your days. And I will see you next time. Come on, new Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. We never stop. We'll see you all tomorrow, everybody. Have a good one.